coming out of Eastern Oregon, damn near Idaho. You're listening to the Double Talkin' with Dog Bite Hair Show.
Thank you all for tuning in to Double Talkin' with Dog Bite. That's me. On this episode, I interview Mathew Williams from West Coast Radio, a friend of mine. We met on Instagram. Support each other's podcasts. I really like what he does. He's had me on his show too as well. I really encourage you guys to go check out his show. That's why we get people on here, so you can check out what they do. Anyways, we talk about a number of things from the pandemic, radio, podcasting, state of the country, the pandemic, I think I said that already, the homeless issues in Seattle and Portland, all kinds of fun stuff, and we managed to keep it funny at the same time, a little serious at times. But first, I feel like every podcast should start out with some music, and I picked a band that is a mutual friend of myself and Matthew's, the Scoffs out of Seattle. This is called Talk is Cheap. And also, I would like to, before that, introduce our new sponsor, $2 Elvis. So enjoy that ad. And if you're ever in the Nashville area and you need a chauffeur and a tour guide, be sure to hit up $2 Elvis.
Howdy, my name is $2 Elvis. I'm the owner-operator of King of the Road VIP Chauffeur Service. That's the tour guide service where you take a tour of Nashville with me, the King.
Well, look out now, I'm cruising around town. You wanna see the city, I'll take you around. Hop on in my baby blue sedan, but don't get jealous of my hundreds of fans. I'll show you the sights and all the bright lights. You say, Elvis, take the wheel. Elvis, take the wheel. Elvis, $2 Elvis, take the wheel.
All you gotta do, baby, is go to www.2elvis.com. Select your date, put down that deposit, and you got a date with me, the King.
Elvis, $2 Elvis, take the wheel.
Empty minds with empty
Alrighty, folks. With me on the phone, I got Matthew Williams from West Coast Radio. Good buddy of mine that kind of cross promote sometimes and dig each other's shows and became friends. And we just kind of like to bullshit, and we figure, fuck it, we'll put it up and record it and see what comes of it. So, hey, buddy, how are you?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right. Like I told you, going through a little bit of an existential crisis that I want to talk about, but overall, like, who isn't right now? Shit,
Yeah,
everybody's going through something. So, I got my health, doing okay.
Cool, man. Well, let's talk about it. Just roll into it. Tell us what's going on.
All right. So I think the first thing the audience should know is, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's finally, I'm glad to finally be doing this.
Actually, start by tell the audience a little bit about your podcast and what you do before we roll into the thing you've got going on.
Well, West Coast Radio is really a show that I hope to recreate sort of like 90s talk radio. So Opie and Anthony and Howard Stern, they were really my heroes. I've listened to, it's got to be over 2,000 hours each, just like we're talking 3 hours a day since I was 14. And I loved it so much, but all different types of talk radio as well from that era. Loveline. You ever listen to Loveline?
Oh yeah, man. With Dr. Drew, right? Loveline.
Oh yeah. Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot Adam Carolla was on that too, which brings you to the Man Show.
Yeah.
I love Adam Carolla. How about the Donkey Show? You ever listen to the Donkey Show?
No. I'm going to write that down though.
They started out in Eugene. They're out of Portland now, but I think they go all the way up to Seattle sometimes too. But yeah, they're pretty funny. They've gotten a bunch of fucking trouble, man, but they're fucking funny as shit. That's what I like. I don't know, man. I'm kind of like, I got that dumb sense of humor. Like, I'm pretty excited about the new Jackass movie. I'm pushing 40, but I'll probably take my kid to go see it in the theater, So I'm with you. I like Howard Stern. And even, a guy I used to listen to, that he's kind of a fucking pig. The older I get, the less I like him. But I used to listen to him a lot when I was in my early 20s, having a lot of women problem, was Tom Likas. You ever listen to Tom Likas?
Yeah. He is he's a little bit of a fucking pig. I understand. Sometimes, like, that's the thing with Howard Stern, is he could be an asshole, but it didn't play off as asshole-ish. Like, you could always tolerate it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. He has that. He's a finesse to be a dickhead, but people kind of, first off, they think it's funny and they kind of get where he's coming from. And he's kind of got, like, I don't know, he's kind of sensitive about being an asshole, I guess you could say.
Yes.
When Tom Likas is just kind of just a fucking asshole, like just a pig. But when you're in your early 20s and you're fucking constantly dealing with shady chicks, like, he's pretty fun to listen to, and you're just fucking pissed off at girls all the fucking time, But, I kind of grew out of him a bit. And I think I haven't heard his show on the radio for a long time. So I'd be willing to bet with cancel culture and everything else, he's just a podcast guy by now.
Well, now you listen, the radio stations out there, especially talk radio, it's owned by about 5 companies. So you got iHeartMedia. You got, it's now called Odyssey, I think, but it used to be Entercom, which is where 99.9 KISW, they're owned by them. But you only have about 5 different companies that are running the radio roost. So you can't pull shit like that anymore, because they'll get rid of you quick.
Yeah, this is kind of cool too, because this is what I really wanted to dig into when I knew we were going to talk, is you went to school for actual radio broadcasting, right?
Well, I went to Seattle U for communications and media. Now, I worked in radio, but that was through an internship.
Okay, so what does that major focus on directly then?
It's really a major for dumb kids. Like, if you're going to college and you're not going to make it anywhere else, you go to, like, maybe even art history is hard. So, but communication, you can't be wrong. So they ask you, what do you think about this news article? So you write your opinions or whatever. You got to learn how to write with grammatical correctness. And then that's not even grammatically correct, but you got to be accurate in that regard. But really, communications and media is like, let's talk about how people communicate in Japan versus here. So, like, in Japan, you have a culture that's based off the collective. You, in and of yourself, don't so much matter as the whole country matters or your whole family matters. Here, it's very individual. And so there are consequences and things like that with both different types of cultures. But that useless horse shit is the type of stuff that you learn in communication and media.
So what kind of job do you get when you get a degree like that?
I think now, and I don't think this is correct. I don't think this is right, because a lot of people have to work their way through school. Like, I went to community college first and people were working full time. But right now, if you want a decent job in any major, even if Engineering, you probably don't. You can go straight into a career, but any college major, really, you have to do the internship route. So you have to try to get an internship, which is really competitive and tough if it's a well-known company. And then if you do well in the internship, they'll give you an entry-level job. But if you don't have an internship, you're almost fucked. You really have to scrape and fight and claw. You have to go maybe to a smaller town before you get to a big city job, or somebody. That's always been the most important thing, right? Somebody. With the communications major, you can do public relations, which is high burnout. Very, very few people make a lot of money. You can go into entertainment, which is tough. And, as it's very tough. But I think what most people do is they go into HR, they sell insurance, they go into real estate, or they do something like communication specialist, which is just a glorified name for communicate to the community for a business.
Some of those, man, you can crawl up through a company doing that shit. I mean, that's what I've done. I don't have a degree, and I'm fucking administrator at a mental health facility, and I'm pretty sure I could go right up to human resources after a couple years,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's cool though. I mean, and what inspired you to go the radio route, Matt?
It was, Love at First Sight and Howard Stern, they go hand in hand with me. When I heard Howard Stern for the first time, I think he was interviewing John Cena or Mario Lopez, but I was 14 and I heard one of his shows on YouTube, because by that time everything was uploaded to YouTube, which everybody at home, a great place to find your favorite talk radio of the 90s. You just go to YouTube. They got it all there. But
I'm still a YouTube guy, man.
Oh, it's tremendous. So anyway, I heard Howard Stern and I was like, man, I want to do this. There's nothing else I would rather do. I've got to do this. I was always a fan of talk radio, but he just got me. There was something about him that just fucking got me. And even the bad shit, like I'm ashamed to admit this, but they would do things like they would have a guy who's from the Ku Klux Klan try to guess who's a Jewish person out of 10 different people.
Yeah, you did some fucked up shit, man.
And it would just, I mean, when you listen to that type of stuff, you've never seen anything like it before. And he toes this fine line of you're going over the edge. I'm uncomfortable. Like I'm a piece of shit for listening to this, but also you find human moments in that Ku Klux Klan guy, even though he's a terrible dude. You have people from the Westboro Baptist Church write their own song to sing to like the gay dude that's also on the show. And, it just shocked me. And most of all, no matter how bad my day was, when I listened to Howard Stern, I was in a different place. Like I got to escape. So I wanted to do that. I was always a curious person and I like to talk shit. So I was like, man, let me try to give this a go. But when I got into radio, it became very apparent very quickly that radio is pretty much dead. It's very corporate. It's very cold. It's owned by like 5 different companies. As I mentioned before, they own all the radio stations pretty much in the country. So that's when I thought, okay, I think the Joe Rogan route is the route of the future. It's no longer try to find a talk radio gig, start your own podcast. And if people like it, then more and more will listen, which I've since learned is not so true. There's more to it than that.
Yeah, it is, man. You got to get people on that people want to listen to, is one thing. That's the challenge that I've found. Even with trying to interview musicians on the lower level, it's like a bitch to get a guy that'll fill 400 people in a bar. They're just like, fuck, I don't want to do that. And I think some of it might be a fear of saying something stupid, having their words get twisted, shit like that might detour people from wanting to actually do interviews. When I first started podcasting fucking 10 years ago or so, it was a way different world. First off, we were like pirates, man. And you could kind of play whatever you wanted to as far as music because nobody was watching at that point in time, and then and people always wanted to come on because they were like, oh fuck yeah, like no, but then it got like overflowed, and then more of the talk side of things took over. And which I'm with you. I've always liked the talk side of stuff too. I think part of a problem that I have is some of the fans that I have that have been from dog water from a long, long time ago that come to listen. They get tired of hearing me talk because I used to really play new music. They come to hear my podcast to hear new music, or any kind of music, or something you could put on. But I always like to talk. side of things, and I've kind of turned my direction in that as well. But shit, I kind of hijacked that. I forgot where we were going. But
Well, if I could say something, the thing with podcasting is too, when Howard Stern was doing his thing, Opie and Anthony were doing their thing, YouTube wasn't really a concept, and your permanent voice wasn't a concept. So you could really go all out, and there was no. You ever heard of the Jerk Beast on public access TV up in Seattle?
I think I have. I lived up there for a while. I think I have.
It was just a gnarly show, incredibly inappropriate. Seattle Public Access in the 90s also. Comcast had not taken over public access television. And so people were swearing, people were playing pornography, they were judging everything you can imagine. It was on this public access TV channel. And like Howard Stern, like Opie and Anthony, like public access TV, it was incredible because they had no concept that this would be stored on the internet forever. Like they could totally go balls to the walls, and not think about their future career being ruined. You know what I mean? And so that's one thing. But also with podcasting now, you get fucking Sandra Bullock, who's got an awful podcast. It's a horseshit show. They talk about less than nothing, but she's got a whole team around her. She can destroy us in advertising purchasing power. Like before she even starts, she's got enough advertising money in to make sure she's going to have tenfold, what our audience is. I don't know exactly what your audience is, but she could kick our ass just from money alone. And so the game right now is not quite rigged, but tough, really hard.
Yeah, it is, man. And every F-list celebrity that can't get a fucking gig anywhere, can't make a movie, every wrestler from the 90s that's blown their body out and can't do shit anymore and have been addicted to so many drugs that none of the promotions want anything to do with them, all have a fucking podcast. Now everybody that was ever something or somebody has a podcast,
And they have a team around them to help them run it. When like guys like you and I, we got to do it all ourselves. And I'm not complaining. No. It is what it is. But what I'm saying is it's like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who just played the Rams. Half their team was injured. It's almost not a fair game at some point. But like I said, it's just, I think if you want to be successful in podcasting now and you don't have a team to write a really strong show, have really strong editing, and allow you to get content out quickly, you're going to have to be really niche focused. Like you like music and you talk to musicians, you have to really focus on a narrow niche. Because if you're just doing let's talk shit about what's going on in the news, like what my show is basically, it's a hard way. It's very difficult to fight the Sandra Bullocks of the podcasting world.
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah. And then they get in the world where they start dealing with people with managers and like booking agencies, shit like that, where they know people. So they want somebody on their show. They probably know their booking agency or they know people that will just come on or whatever. And then they've got a nice environment to offer them usually where they can come and fucking hang out when they're in town, but yeah, I mean, I agree 100% on just about everything you just said, really, But yeah, I mean, and the problem is too, is I would like to find more podcasts that are good, that aren't necessarily focused on like a celebrity, and but it's hard, that's why I was glad when I found yours, because it was like something different, something that wasn't like familiar to me. Most of the podcasts that I listen to are surrounding music that I like, wrestling, or Joe Rogan, or topics, people I like, and then so but everybody's got a fucking podcast now, so it's really hard to sort through what's good or not. So when I checked yours out, I was like, this is awesome. This is great. This guy's got good guests on and topics I like to listen to, and you have voice, man. That's for some reason you got this radio friendly voice, man, or podcast friendly, whatever,
Thank you. I've been thinking about what makes a good show, and I've been thinking about what is the value of a good show, because, what are you expecting? Are you expecting to make money down the line, which is what I hope to do. That's my dream. I don't really see this as podcasting. I see this as trying to keep talk radio alive in the way that it can't be alive. But there is this dude, Colin Hayes. He's the lead singer of I Come from the Land Down Under. Men at Work.
No, it's
And
not Men. Oh no, it is Men at Work. Never mind. Yeah.
he was playing this concert, and he was talking about his early days in music, and he'd just gotten kicked off his first record label, and he was thinking to himself as he was like sitting there wallowing. His girlfriend had just dumped him too. He's like, man, if I have to play music to an audience of 5 people, 10 people, will it still satisfy me? Will it still satisfy me as much as it would if I was making money? And he said, looking back on it, I can tell you with confidence, it would not have satisfied me, and in my head, I'm thinking, I love what I do so much, but the growth is very slow. You got to fight and you got to claw and you got to move and you got to move. And it takes a lot of time. At some point, and I was telling you this off the air, but I got this card. It's a business card, and we're not doing audio. I'm going to show you the card.
We can still do audio if you want for the recording.
Check this out. So the guy is called JJ the DJ. And when I was working in radio, he came up to me and talked to me for like 20, 25 minutes. And he's maybe 50 in this picture. And he was talking to me about, oh, it's great that you're in radio so young. I spent 20 years in radio. This is my advice. Do this, do that, do the other thing. And then at the end, he was like, by the way, I'm a salesman at whatever bowling alley. If you ever want to bowl, let me know. We'll get you hooked up for like a $150 special. And God bless him. But it scared the fucking shit out of me. And I was like, man, if I don't be very careful, what if I go all out? And then at some point I find myself 50 years old talking to some 19-year-old with acne and trying to sell him bowling alley equipment. Well, my dream was really radio. So that's fucking with my head right now. Because again, the growth is coming with West Coast radio, but you got to fight and you got to claw and you got to really believe hardcore to keep this thing going, even if the jump is like 100, 200 people per month or whatever, it's hard. It really, the excitement of podcasting and, oh my God, I'm doing this. Oh my God, I got somebody on my show. That kind of has worn off at this point, especially because I had been doing other podcasts and shit for like 8 years now. Nothing that I ever aired, and it was all like at the radio station. But it fucks with my head because I want to go all in. I want to go all out, but nobody wants to end up like JJ the DJ. God bless him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, man. So like when I was about 22, 23 years old, I decided to roll the dice and go to the Art Institute of Seattle to be a audio production artist. Essentially I think we talked about this when I did your show, but essentially that's a polite word for record producer or live sound engineer. And they had career fucking day where they brought in past students that were successful. And this girl came in who was a graduate, and had her talk to us. And I don't know if you know shit about the Art Institute. It's shut down now, but
really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, they shut it the fuck down because they're crooks. They're crooked motherfuckers, dude. But anyways, okay, hold on. I'm gonna pause this. I'm on call at work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I gotta handle something real quick. All right. So anyway, sorry about that, buddy. So this girl comes in and she's talking about how successful she is. And essentially she's a roadie for the Gorge Amphitheater. And some kid asked her, well, and how much are you making right now? And this is like back in 2006, maybe 2007. And she was like, just chewing her gum. She's like, I make about, what'd she say? I make about $12 an hour. And that's pretty good for what we do. This isn't fucking, and I'm in Seattle just drowning. And this is 10 years ago, man. And Seattle was still fucking expensive back then. Like fucking insanely expensive back then. And I'm in Seattle and I'm in a fucking goddamn Art Institute that's costing me $1,500 a class. Not to mention all the bullshit books they make you buy and all the other shit they talk you into because you're young and you're fucking stupid. And
all the bullshit equipment they overcharge you for that they say you fucking need when you can go buy it someplace else for a fraction of the cost. Hit me like a fucking freight train. I dropped out a fucking month later. I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm not fucking this stupid. I've learned way more about audio production outside that fucking place too. And I found out when I fucking dropped out, I was going to go to Shoreline because Shoreline apparently has got a good audio program and it's a fucking fraction of the price because it's a community college.
Shout out community colleges.
And it's just as much respected around in the area for audio as the fucking Art Institute is.
Right.
So I was going to go there and I was talking to them about transferring my credit and they're like credits. And they're like, oh no, your credits aren't transferable. This is like a trade school. Like essentially you're just paying us for the clout. And this is shit they don't fucking mention to you at all when you're applying for it and you're dumb and don't know what the fuck you're doing. You know, I should have I should have done a way better job at researching shit, but I was just partying all the time and I was like, fuck. At that point I was like scared because I thought I was getting old at 22. You know, I'm like, I haven't done shit with my life. I'm not making any money. I have to go to college and I should go to college to do something I love. I love music, you know. But yeah, man, like, yeah, I've had a few of those moments, you know, and I've had a few of those moments in music too, where you're talking about like you invest everything you have into what you love, you know, and that's where I dove in when I got out of college. You know, I found out that I could write some songs and found into the actual music scene. And I dove right into that. And that's when I was like, well, fuck, I'm just going to do this and I have shit to live for. Like, I don't have a fucking house and I have a mortgage and I have a job. Like, I'll just throw my shit in a fucking van and live in a van and just go play shows. This is like great, you know? And, you know, but then you start, like you just said, man, you meet all these guys, especially when you're a musician, man. Like, and you meet all these guys, and I've met a million guys, just like the guy on the card you just fucking showed me, dude.
Yeah.
And they're all musicians, like 40 fucking years old with kids they don't fucking take care of, you know, and they're like, you can tell they just hate it, but they just got stuck doing it because this cat is fucking bonkers, dude. But they just fucking hate it now, you know, and you can tell it's something they used to love. They now fucking don't like it as much as they used to. You know, they're watching people that aren't as good as them get fucking a lot more money because they're younger and they are catering to a younger crowd, even though maybe these kids are fucking essentially ripping them off to a point.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I've a million fucking times I've been in that same fucking place where I scared shit of myself, you know, and you have to find this balance where you can find something that doesn't take a lot of your time and gives you some money so you can invest in yourself. Because I can imagine, I mean, I know what I make off of podcasting and I don't take it quite as serious as you, but I make nothing, you know? And part of the reason is I'm afraid since I have a job, if I start making $100, $200, what the fucking IRS is going to do, you know?
Yeah.
So right for now, I just kind of stay off the map. If I see opportunities where I can get some sponsorship, where my views go up pretty high, and there's a reason for me to really, really commit to it, I would love to. Same with music, you know, but that's where, I mean, it sucks. It's heartbreaking, but you got to find something that you can tolerate doing that doesn't make you want to fucking brush your fucking teeth with buckshot.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry, finish your thought, but I got something to say about that.
Okay. That you can do to tide you over until you can figure out how to make what you love into a business.
Yeah. You know, my brother-in-law, and I didn't know him, so there's no need for condolences. But my brother-in-law, he brushed his teeth with shotgun, you know, or buckshot or whatever. He killed himself, and he killed himself in this Michigan. You ever been to Myers before? like Walmart in Michigan in the
Oh yeah,
Midwest.
yeah. It's like more
But
like it's kind of like a mix between Walmart and Target.
yeah, exactly. And this guy was in an old beat up truck, and he's a factory worker. And he was in a parking lot because he had gotten kicked out of my sister's house for he had a bad drug problem and he was gambling. And so when it got really really bad, he got kicked out and sent to live with his sister. But when he couldn't come back, his depression and the demons in his head, it took him to this parking lot in a Myers, and he was sitting there, and then he blew his brains out. And this was a couple days before Thanksgiving. Even though I didn't know him, and I just want to tell the story because it's kind of a classic American story. It probably means some stuff to people right now, but this guy, he spent his whole life within 20 miles of where he was born. And, like a classic country song, he worked at a factory. He had a decent life set up for him, hurt his back at work, got prescribed Oxy, and then he got addicted to the Oxy because he didn't know how to defend himself properly, spiraled down buying pills on the street, spending all his money, and the rest is history. So his story is very common to a lot of other hardworking Americans. So God bless him. I'm not saying I'm not speaking ill of him, but I thought a lot about what does life mean? What's the purpose of life? And I think on one end, if you have kids, that's your purpose right there. And really, that's the biblical purpose, to reproduce and take care of your offspring and stuff like that. But if you're like me and you don't want kids, I spent a lot of time thinking about why did he leave? And then I also thought about how easy it is to leave. It really is just one moment and you're gone. So what is the purpose of being here? Why wouldn't you take yourself out? And, I think that the purpose of us being here is, number one, there's community. You want to spend time with the people you love. But also, I think a lot of why you're here is passion. And that's also a lot of why somebody takes themselves out of this world, is because they're not living with a lot of passion. So what's my point with that? My point is, as I'm moving from college to getting a career job, I think about the math of this all. And, dog bite, the math of this, when you have to work a full-time job, which is a blessing. Most people will never have the opportunity to earn a wage that an American can earn. We are very lucky to be born in Americans. So take this with a grain of salt and know, everybody at home, I know this life that we're living is a blessing. But at the same time, a 40-hour work week, you're either sleeping or you're at work for a majority of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And this world that we've created takes a lot of time away from spending time in the pursuit and then acting on your passion, which I think is what keeps us here in life. It's about living life passionately, living life with aloha if you're a Hawaiian. And I think that's why a lot of people are taking themselves out of this life right now, is because you just lose your passion. And especially when you have to work a corporate job, like read the course or read the job descriptions for any of these open jobs right now. Most of them are just like, oh my God, like it's robotic and corporate and cold, but it's a living. And so, like you said, there's a balance with it all, but just the math alone of a 40-hour work week, it takes a lot of time away from your ability to live your passion out. And so that's a concept that I'm going to have to get over. I'm going to have to get over it. But it's hard to come to grips with at the same time.
And
it's a majority of your life.
My advice to you as for somebody who has been through the same exact place that you're at in your life, don't let yourself be consumed by whatever it is you're embarking on now, because it's a hard balance sometimes. I have got really wrapped up into everything else, and at times, man, there's been times where I didn't even want to fucking think about music, and that's the thing I love. One of the things I love most in the world, and when I was mixing the label and the booking shows, so that was kind of like a form of income too, along with working in mental health. So then I'm taking my job or my passion and turning it into a job, and it's way more stressful than it needs to be. And then I'm throwing another job into it that I'm pretty okay with doing. I could definitely be doing worse things, and kind of found another passion by accident, but so I'm blessed in that sense. But what I guess I'm trying to get at is that don't let yourself get too burnt out doing what you need to do to make money. Because then it kind of burns you out on the other end too. You know, it makes you tired, makes you might not want to get up to record, you know, it makes, you know, and with me, the problem I've been having is I just took a new job at work. I just got a call from work. I'm gonna have to pause the phone again to call my job so I can talk to these kids.
No worries, man. No worries.
To talk these kids through whatever. No, I mean, it's not a big deal, but to talk these kids through whatever problem they're having at work, right? And sometimes when I'm doing this all the time, I get so burnt out, like I don't want to record a podcast. And then I'll be like, man, you got to fucking record a podcast, or you got to go on the road and play a show. And then I do it, and I've the last episode of Useless and Alone that I did, I fucking tried to record that thing 3 times. I deleted 3 different shows because I just I was like, I tried, I made myself do it, but I fucking am not putting this shit out there because it's just stupid. I wouldn't want to listen to that, you know, or like I'll book a show and I'll be like, you got to get out there and play a show. And then I get out there and I'm just fucking miserable because I am fucking burnt out from work, you know? So it's like, I encourage you, man, to just don't lose your passion while you're trying to get by, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you need something if you need something to boost you up, you know, to, so you can invest into your podcast and maybe buy some advertising space or something that'll get you out there, invest in equipment, invest in maybe, you know, throwing a few bucks to get a guest on that you might want, that might get you some views, you know, shit like that, you know?
Yeah.
That's like with me, like I went to work so I could invest in tour equipment, band merch, shit like that, you know? And then I met my fucking old lady and fucking got a kid. And then I was like, oh, well, shit, now I better find something a little more serious, you know? So
Right.
I'm going to pause this for just a second. I'm going to call here, see what they need.
Go ahead.
Sorry, man, all right, we're off pause again. Hopefully for the rest of the interview.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about was just for me, your experience. I just turned 27, and turning 27 is interesting because you have the famous 27 Club, you know, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain.
There's also another one. Sorry to interrupt you. The 2900 Club that a lot of people don't realize. There's just as many artists that died at 29. But
really,
you know, yeah, the number's not associated with the devil though, so people don't talk about it as much because the 27 for some reason set like the number 9 apparently is like, which I always thought I would think the number 6, but the number 9 apparently is associated with the devil. So it's like the folklore behind it. And it started with Robert Johnson. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Oh yeah.
Blues guy. And is that he sold his soul. And then he started the 2700 Club. So, but there's a lot of fucking Hank Williams, Shannon Hoon from Blind Melon. A lot of motherfuckers died at 29, almost just as many as 27.
You know what they never say about somebody selling their soul to the devil? And I tried to get into this during the Halloween episode, but I couldn't find any information. You hear it all the time in folklore. Somebody sold their soul to the devil. Robert Johnson's the famous one at the crossroads. But nobody ever tells you what the process is to get the devil in front of you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, well, there's a documentary on Netflix, and I can't remember, that does kind of dive into that a little bit, where they really dive into Robert Johnson's history and how it got started. And I can't remember. I wish I did so I can enlighten you on it a bit. But if you're interested, isn't it called The Crossroads? I think it's called The Devil in Me. Okay, could be. I got my phone right here in Netflix. Let me look it up real quick. But yeah. Anyways, keep going while I look this up. No, I was always interested in what is the process. So you decided that you want to sell your soul to the devil in exchange to be, I don't know, the best quarterback ever named Tom Brady. All right. So you do that. And what is the process? What do you have to do? Do you have to put salt over your shoulder 3 times and jump on one foot? How do you get the devil in front of you to make that deal? Nobody talks about that. There was a weird ritual in a graveyard, I think, is what started Robert Johnson's folklore. But I can't remember. It's been a while. And they hyped the documentary up, and I watched it, and I just wasn't really all that impressed with it. I don't know. It just didn't grab me all that much. And I can't remember why or what.
but I just didn't pay attention all that much. But it does have some pretty cool. It does have a few cool things in it.
Well, you know who does really believe in that stuff is the guy who played, I think his name's Christopher Hitchens. He's the guy who played the bad Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. You know the guy who beat the shit out of Gandalf in that tower?
Oh,
He was the bad old guy. He's a really famous actor. But anyway, he died recently. But when he was going on talk shows back in the 80s and 90s, somebody asked him about like his thoughts on the devil and stuff like that, because he had some books on the occult is what they call it, but like devil books and stuff like that. He totally believes it. He was very serious about the fact that if you go down that road, it'll consume you. It'll drive you crazy. So some people believe in that stuff, but I just was curious what the actual ritual would be to actually get the devil in front of you, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's the devil at the crossroad, I guess, is what it's called. But anyways, what were you going to ask? You're talking about 27.
Oh yeah. So the question is, you know, it seems so difficult to get success by any measure in the arts, but let alone to have become so famous that by the time you're 27 and you die, there's already like a whole catalog. There's a whole bunch of art that you've put out that people really enjoy by the millions. To have already reached great success by 27 is, how do you do that? Like, what makes somebody that successful by 27?
Dude, it's insane. And it rarely happens nowadays. I don't know if you've noticed. It doesn't happen like it used to. And for some reason, to me, too, this is something that I've noticed getting older that you might not have noticed because you're a bit younger. You're 10 years younger than me. And that's probably just enough of an age gap to where you didn't notice this. But think about what a 27-year-old looks now. Think about what you look like compared to what Kurt Cobain looked like when he died.
Yeah.
You look like a baby compared to what these guys look like. And I'm 37 and I look probably about like a 27-year-old looked in the fucking 90s, 80s, whenever, you know. There's something going on where people are living longer, I think, is some of it. And it's taken longer for people to get their shit together, I think, too. There's a lot more people that really just spend their whole 20s fucking off. And then they finally start to get their shit together in their 30s. There's a lot of people going to college later. I'm not sure if there's more health issues in the world than ever, but people are living longer. So it's really strange. But that's I've thought about the same exact thing, man. Because it rarely happens now. I mean, Post Malone's kind of an exception to the rule. He's about 27 now, I think, too. And he looks old as shit, you know? And, and he was, you know, and another thing too, something to chew on is that they rarely let anybody who's not perfect be famous anymore. You know, it's real hard for people like Kurt Cobain or just an average fucking kid playing weird music from Aberdeen, Washington, to break through. I mean, it's always been hard, but it's even harder now. And it's weird because of technology, you know, but it's because of what people shove in your face. It has to be fucking perfect. Everybody's got to be pretty and clean. But my thought on that, I think is that 30 is the new 20 is kind of where I'm getting at, you know. I mean, there are some younger people, and I mean, YouTube, like, and there's shit that I don't even understand, like fucking TikTok famous, YouTube famous, you know, like fucking, what's the name of that guy that's boxing now? Jake Paul, that fucking idiot that fucking is just popular from doing stupid shit and running his mouth, you know. That's another thing too, is like, and this is, I was listening to a podcast the other day, ironically enough, it was a wrestling podcast, but it used to be that fame was a unfortunate byproduct of being good at doing something really amazing. Now fame is just fucking attention. It's what people strive for. It is what people want, and people are willing to do the dumbest shit to get that attention. You know, you used to have to, for the most part, do something special to be fucking famous. Whether you were a president, a politician, an actress, an actor, a musician, fucking whatever it be, you know. And nowadays you can just turn your goddamn cell phone camera on and do something fucking extremely stupid and get fucking famous for it, you know? So, I mean, there's a couple different ways you can look at it, you know? There's a whole side of fame
Well, you know,
that I don't even understand, you know, because I'm old, you know? So
one of the issues, it's not an issue. It's an aspect of having access to be able to put your own stuff out there. You know, today more than ever, it's never been easier to make your own album, to make your own talk show, to do whatever. And so because of that, there are lots and lots of people and lots of talented people. There's tons of talented people out there.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I really believe that there were 1,000 Led Zeppelins, but one made it because the stars aligned for them. You know, that's just the way it goes. But there are so many voices now in any aspect of the creative industry, and they're all screaming as loud as they can, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. You can't pick out any particular voice in Arrowhead Stadium, like where the Kansas City Chiefs play. And so that's the ultimate battle now. Is it takes a little longer. And I think to your point, that's why a lot of people are finding success in their 30s and when it used to be younger, is because to stand out as one person in a stadium of 90,000, in a stadium of, there's like 2 million podcasts or whatever, it's very, very difficult. Not to mention, a lot of people just get lucky with the algorithms now. There's there's algorithms at play that boost whether or not your content gets seen.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's really tough as well.
That's another thing. I don't understand any of that at all. You know,
nobody does. I think a very few people do. And it's ever changing. That's the other thing. The math is always changing as to what YouTube thinks people will like, what Spotify thinks people will listen to. And I don't know. I don't know how that works either. I don't really think anybody does.
Yeah, there's probably a few people. There's probably a good handful of people behind the fucking scenes pulling the curtains on shit, you know, or sometimes too, like, you know, there's a lot of these guys that do like little short episodes, like it's this Midwestern guy called I don't know. They do podcasts too, but they got famous by just doing short little fucking funny clips of things. And the You Betcha guy, there's this guy called Dude Dad, you know, that just filmed doing those guys. Like, I think those guys have something special, you know, and it's cool that they can do that, you know, but you're right too. And to bounce back onto like what you were saying about there's 1,000 Led Zeppelins and one was special. That you're exactly right. But check this out. Flipping the page. Nowadays, there's probably not one Led Zeppelin because being a musician is a lot easier than it used to be. Those bands back in the day, you'd throw them in a studio. They recorded all that shit live. What you heard on a stage was exactly what you heard on an album. And with Pro Tools and everything else, that rarely happens now. There's so much studio magic that it's taken away from music in a sense, you know? So there's a lot of people like, I'm not a great guitar player, but with Pro Tools, I can punch in a bunch, you know? So when I'm playing live, I fuck up, you know, luckily I got a good band. So I picked good musicians that probably could have been in a band like that back then, but they're kind of hard to find, you know? But I picked guys like, I got lucky enough to where like the guys in my band are all pretty much fucking classically trained aside my drummer, you know, they've been to school for it and stuff. So if I fuck up, they can cover me, you know, I'll just stop playing and the crowd won't even fucking hardly notice because my band's so good, you know, so all I got to do is focus on singing. And then even then my voice sucks, you know, so like, it's not perfect. Like fucking Robert Plant's, you know, and that motherfucker could do that all day. And that's the one thing he would do. Him and Kurt Cobain, those guys, before Pro Tools came along, they would fucking sit there and they would take after take after take after take till it was perfect. That was the one thing they would do that's perfect. Now you throw a little fucking studio magic on that shit on a computer. You don't have to do that. You know, so it's like you get these people out there. It's just the market's flooded, I guess is what I'm saying. You know, and it's flooded with people that are good and people that aren't so good that maybe sound better because of how they were recorded. You know,
you got a great point. You know, I covered this with Warren, my co-host, the other day on a recent episode, but you're right. I think about maybe there isn't a Led Zeppelin out there right now because you look at the number one song it's in the United States, but also it could be the world. It's Driver's License by Olivia Rodrigo. And that's a dog shit song. There's no soul. There's no heart to it. The writing was probably all AI writing. I don't know, but her voice was very heavily mixed in Pro Tools. It sounds perfect, but without soul, without heart, and the song doesn't mean anything. It's just it's awful. It's almost like applying to a job where you have to copy and paste certain keywords.
Exactly.
It's,
And I can tell you what that comes down to. And a lot of that really started in Nashville with country music. So there's songwriters out there, and the songwriters work for or own or are heavily associated with record companies, right? And so they'll go out and they'll write these songs, and a lot of times they're fucking horrible. It's like Uncle Gus is fucking hiring his nephew to make some fucking words rhyme on a fucking goddamn piece of paper.
yeah.
Well, then they'll go get somebody pretty like Kane Brown or fucking, whoever the fuck, who cares? And they can sing good. They probably, a lot of them been to school to fucking be classically trained. They've got about as much country in their fucking blood as Barbara Streisand does, but they can fucking pull it off. It's all an act, And then those guys that are writing those songs get paid a shit ton of money. And then they control what people see for the most part, which is the beautiful thing about the new generation of computers and Facebook is they don't control that as much as they used to. They still have got a good fucking control on it, because when you got money, you can figure out how to control everything. So when you can keep up with the times, but essentially they're writing songs. So like when you sell your song to like a commercial, you get money for it, and then they get these dipshits that fucking, and basically they tell people what to like, and then they make money off of it. And nobody thinks freely, nobody has a fucking notion to like just sit down and try to think about things. They want all their shit spoon fed to them, whether it's fucking music, movies, fucking podcasting, fucking whatever, There's so many people that don't want to think, they'd rather, I don't know. There's so many country songs, pop songs that are the same exact fucking song, just rewritten.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds the same, like
no
everything.
Thought bullshit, man. But the thing is, that's why they love it, is because they can do that, and they get all these kids and these people, and the thing about music with me is I probably take it a bit more serious than I should, for whatever reason, it grabs my guts, and it doesn't do that for everybody. Some people want to listen to music to have a good time. I want to listen to music to have a good time, to get me out of a bad mood, to make me sulk when I'm in a bad mood, to make me feel fucking sadder when I'm already sad, feel like I'm being understood. It's like therapy to me, like really fucking speaks to me, and it doesn't do that. And sometimes I have to step back and be like, all right, music's got a purpose for everybody. Like, yeah, people should be able to dance to music. People shouldn't have to take music as serious as I am, because it makes them happy, But unfortunately, the shitty byproduct of that is that people can write really stupid songs, control the market so nothing original gets through like it used to, and make a fucking shit ton of money off of it and keep little artists down, But that's why you hear shit like that, is because somebody wrote that song, somebody made a lot of money off of it. They probably found somebody really pretty to sing it. And nowadays, they don't even have to be able to sing. They just have to be pretty and have some kind of attraction, because you can just put them in a studio and fucking fix it up,
Yep. Yeah. It's the more and more I learn about the industry of entertaining people, the more I just go, man, it's almost like if you're trying to make it as an independent person, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. But it's really a David and Goliath situation, especially when it comes to advertising and promotion and making deals with other executives. Hey, what is going to draw most attention so this thing stays at number one in the charts?
That's a beautiful way to put it.
You're in an uphill battle. Yeah.
Well, and then the only way, not the only way, but the most popular and the easiest way to get that kind of attention is to offer a product that's good enough to get these people's attention, but you can't trust these people. They're going to fuck you in the ass. How many fucking musicians sign these fucking ridiculously stupid deals, not knowing what they're doing, and they end up owing a record company money after the record company's made a bunch of money because they are young, dumb. They think they can be a rock star. A lot of the times, when you sign a record deal, man, your first album, it better do amazing. And your second album better do even fucking better, because if you're not keeping that fucking momentum up, you're going to be poorer than me.
Yep.
You know, you're going to be bankrupt as shit. So yeah, they get these people locked into contracts. They get these assholes that fucking, they want to just take advantage of you, you know, and they get you to do shit you don't want to do, you know, and then you get stuck doing these. Oh, well, write this song. And then if you're a band that's like, that is original, writes their own tunes, and they'll try to shove all those songwriter songs up your ass so they can make a little money too. You know, it's just a sick fucking game, you know? But
I think a great example of that is Seth Rogen. Just look at how Seth Rogen started his career making Pineapple Express and shit like that, and look who he is now.
There's a million
Perfect
actors
example.
just like it, man. Yeah, he just did a Hulu show about Pam and Tommy. Like, I was like, what the fuck is Seth Rogen doing? He's one of my favorites. But yeah, and I mean, every good comedian's done the same thing. Seth Rogen, fucking Jim Carrey, fucking Chris Farley. I mean, and he would have went down an even worse road if he wouldn't have died so soon. Most of Chris Farley's movies are good, but you could see the same fucking thing coming, where he's going to be fucking Mike Myers, Adam Sandler, fucking name it. You fucking name it. They've all done the same thing, where they start out doing good stuff, and then it's like, basically it's like, do more of that. Do more of that.
Right.
Do more of that. Will Ferrell is another good one. Any fucking
Big example.
Yeah. Any fucking good ones, you know? And it's just, and yeah, that's another thing they do too, to go back on that, is if you do something good, they're going to be like, do that again. So you're just like, your artistic freedom is gone, you know? I mean, Will Ferrell's a good actor. Same with, I mean, Adam Sandler's kind of man. I've seen him in a couple serious things that I thought were kind of good, but you know, but Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly is another great example. That poor fucker's a great actor, but he did he did a movie with fucking couple movies with Will Ferrell, and then he's right in the goddamn same boat with him, you know, and he's got a string of movies from the 90s that are amazing, like Magnolia, people that, you know, things that people haven't seen, you know, and he got fucking pigeonholed with the fucking rest of them, you know. And that's another thing that happens, is when you do something good, they're like, do the next thing, but it's got to be like Billy Madison. Like every Adam Sandler movie is almost the same fucking plot line, you know. It's like, you got to do that, you know. And then he just kind of got more ridiculous. He's like the Little Nickies and the Water Boys and shit, where he like kind of gets the over the top comedies. But you know, it's like, it's always kind of the same plot, you know. Which, don't get me wrong, I love a lot of that stuff, but you're totally fucking right, man.
His latest movie, what was it? He was a gambler. He sold jewelry and he was a gambler. What was that movie called? God Almighty.
Yeah,
Hidden
what is
Gems.
that?
Hidden Gems, I think. Very good. That was good.
He did another one called Rain on Me. That was about a guy that lost his whole family in 9/11 and had a mental breakdown and chose to like just forget about that part of his life. So like he'd ignore his wife's and his kids, like fucking family. Like they tried to get a hold of him, and like his family would talk to him, but he would, like, the second they would try to bring up anything about his past, he'd just like freak out and wouldn't talk to him. So then he meets this guy, like he runs into this guy from his college days that didn't know his life with his wife at all. So he ends up like connecting with this guy, and the guy like is Tim Meadows is the guy. And he ends up like getting him to like come out of his shell and talk about it. And it's like this whole process, but he plays, it's really good. But there is a part where, like, I was watching with my ex-girlfriend in Oklahoma, and I was like, this movie's so good. But there's this part where he goes off and he's like doing this really dramatic scene. She's like, but it's just Happy Gilmore to me, because he's got the same voice and like he's upset and he's like crying, but he's like doing the whole, you know, just the Adam Sandler voice. She's like, it's hard for me to take him serious. And I fucking ruined it for me, because I'm like, she was totally right. You know, like I was like, after that I watched it, I'm like, fuck, she fucking ruined this. Cause I was like, this movie's so good. But yeah, that one I was really impressed with too, though. You know, he's got some good ones.
Why does somebody live in Oklahoma other than their family was born there?
Fuck, I don't know, man. I've been back. Well, I went back a couple times on tour, but I never went back after I fucking hooked up with her. It was a pretty short-lived fucking thing, but yeah, I don't know, man. There's some great country music that comes out of there, though, that I really love. So there's something in the water for artists and singer-songwriters down there, but there isn't shit in Oklahoma. And I kind of feel the same way about Texas, too. I mean, Texas has got some cool stuff, but I think so. I mean, a lot of people will say the same thing about Eastern Oregon, too. And I think there's a certain type of people that maybe not so much the culture, but there's a certain vibe to like the desert that it's appealing to some people, and a lot of people that were raised in, the Pacific Northwest or areas that are opposite of the desert, they don't really get it, like everything's dead. But for some reason, it took me a while to realize it. It took me moving to the city to where I really embrace desert kind of shit. So, and I mean, Oklahoma's not really deserty, but it's pretty fucking dry, So I guess there's an aspect of beauty to it if you can find it. And, people can't,
Yeah.
You got to be a certain type of person to find it, I don't know. I've never had a good fucking show there. And shit with that girl really did not end well. So I've always had a fucking bug up my ass about Oklahoma, Wyoming.
I was going to say Wyoming. That's mine too. I don't like Wyoming.
Fucking Wyoming and Florida. Florida's bullshit too. But fucking Wyoming is probably my least favorite state in the fucking goddamn United States.
I agree.
But I kind of do enjoy driving through it. It's a cool state that a lot of people shit on is Utah. You ever been to Utah?
I've only driven through Utah. It looks from the highway, it looks like a weird state. It's very strange the way it's laid out.
I don't know about you, man, but the first time I ever drove through Utah, something inside of me felt different. Not just looking around, but there was like my whole mood changed going through Utah. Like
it's that Mormon glory.
It was kind of weird. I didn't really like it the first time I went through, but the second 2 or 3 times I went through, I've always had a good show there. And even though there's a bunch of Mormons around, Utah, Salt Lake City knows how to party, man. They're a cool town. But Utah's a pretty cool state, and it's kind of right by Wyoming. That's what made me think about that.
I got to check out Salt Lake City. I've always wanted to. I've heard that Salt Lake City and Ogden are pretty cool towns to be in.
Yeah.
Ogden was really cool, especially.
I've never actually been to Ogden, but I've almost played a few shows there because there was a bar that was popping pretty good. And a lot of my friends say it's a good town. It's one of the few I haven't been to.
All right. Yeah, I'll tell you, Wyoming is not a state you want to drive through in the wintertime. I could imagine it might be all right in the spring or summer or something like that. But I had to drive through Wyoming in the winter. And that was probably one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. You're not prepared for those winds.
Fuck
and
no.
I mean, the winds,
crazy.
They're shocking your car. They're moving them back and forth. But also the altitude is so high up there and the hills are so steep that when you're on the highway, sometimes the cloud cover is below the peak of the highway. So you're going into the clouds. The wind is rocking you. And not to mention the black ice that could hit you, and there's nothing. So you could be driving 100 miles. If you fuck up, something happens to your car out there, it's going to be a little bit before AAA can get to you. It's a scary state at night, especially in the winter.
There's stretches of the freeway where if you don't fill up, you're going to run out of fucking gas.
Yeah.
In Wyoming. That's one thing we know from touring, man. And I never had to do that, but it was because old timers that I toured with passed that piece of information on to me. They'll be like, it'll be 200 miles before you see another fucking gas station. If you're running low, you better fill up just in case,
And it's not a safe situation to be in if your car runs out of gas, because your car immediately turns into a refrigerator.
Yeah. Or a fucking oven, depending on what time of year it is. It's either it's blazing hot or cold as shit. And it can dump blizzards will dump snow so quick that you cannot see in front of you at all.
Yeah.
It'll look like there's a wall of snow in front of you. I've heard of whiteouts in like South Dakota, North Dakota, and Wyoming that were so bad that it's almost like it just dumps snow. just a block of snow almost. And if you're on the fucking road when that happens, you're fucking fucked, man. You know?
And whenever you're out there, you always see cars, like just regular Hondas that have no business being on a road in winter conditions like that. They're driving 5 miles an hour. I can't imagine that type of hell.
Well, one good thing about like Montana and Wyoming is they're completely prepared for that weather. They live in it every year. So they've got thousands and thousands of snow plows just going 24 hours, you know? So on occasion, they'll get a real bad one that'll fuck shit up. But for the most part, they're just working 24 hours to keep those roads going. And my grandma drove a Geo Metro 20 miles round trip for as long as I can remember, going to work and back. And the winters here used to get pretty tough. They're not as bad as they used to be, but she lived in the mountains and the climate here changes within 10 miles. You could fucking be in town where there's not a streets are bare, streets are dry, fucking 50 degrees, you hit the top of the hill 10 miles out of town and you're in 2 feet of fucking snow and it's like 10 degrees, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But she drove that and swore by it because front wheel drive, man, it's almost as good as a big pickup with just rear wheel drive. You know, as long as what you're driving on is plowed and it's not stacked up, that's where you start having problems, you know, because the Geo is pretty low to the ground. They always kept those roads pretty plowed. So she just cruise in, you know. But, you know, if you're going out the mountains and shit where there's like a foot of snow, 2 feet of snow on the highway, or you get out there when here what happens is a lot of the times is that our winters have gotten so light that the road crews aren't as prepared as they used to be. Sometimes we'll wake up and there'll be a foot of snow on the ground and nobody's woke up yet. Like nobody's figured out because it's a small rural area. They wake up, oh shit, people got to go to work. You know, it's fucking dumping snow. So people will be driving to work at like 4 a.m. through like down the highway where it hasn't been plowed. And that's when the messes happen here. And you need a 4-wheel drive or a tall pickup for the most part. If you're on a plowed road, you can drive a Honda pretty well, man.
What is life like living in a rural area? Because I've never done that before. Whenever my family moved, it was because of the military, so we were always within an hour of a big city. And you know, what is it? What do you do to enjoy yourself? What is life like in a very, very small town?
Dude, it sucks, man. I mean, there's people that I feel like there's people that have really brainwashed themselves into loving it. And the problem with that is they get this complex where they think they're better or smarter than people. Like, I live in the country where there's not a lot of people. We're smart out here. But then they think they can solve the world problems because they don't have the same problems that people do in the city because they're in the country, you know? So they get this fucking mentality about them where they're better, but there's not a lot of education, you know. So it's different, man. And let me tell you something, as a kid that grew up with a single mom who had a drug problem, maybe has a drug problem, but and tended bar,
yeah,
broke my whole life. And I'm not from this area. I was born in this area, but my family, I shouldn't say that. My family is not from this area. My mom's family moved here 4 years before I was born. And my mom left, got pregnant from my dad, and then came back here because she was getting away from him because he was hooked on heroin and kind of a piece of shit. So she moved back with my grandparents, who were transplants here. My grandpa moved out here to get sober and get away from his family, who are crazy. And that's why he did it. He came out here because it's fucking 3 hours away from his family in the city, you know, so he's not just going to drive there to get drunk with his brothers. You know, he just work, go home, stay sober. Didn't know anybody, nothing. That's why my grandpa moved out here, is to live a simpler, sober life. And so when I came out here, you know, I mean, I was always an outsider. pretty much. So if you're not here, most of the people that fucking live here, dude, their fucking ancestors hopped off the Oregon Trail. There's literally people in this area. Their fucking ancestors came over here on the Oregon trails. There's like the Dohertys. There's fucking multiple last names that have just stayed there. There's this kid in my class that did this report when we were in high school, and they're like, "Oh, where'd your family come from? Or how did your family get to Eastern Oregon?" That was the whole thing. And this kid, you could tell, like, he was a farm kid, but he didn't really fit in with his family for whatever reason, just didn't think like them. But he gave this report. He's like, my family ended up here because my family was too lazy to go the extra 200 miles to get to Portland. And he said to stop in the middle of the desert and start growing wheat. That was essentially the only fucking thing that grows there is like wheat and potatoes. I mean, that's pretty lush farmland, but you wouldn't know it coming through it, man. But yeah, I mean, it's different, dude. It's a different mentality, man. You know, and the shitty thing is I have friends that just don't get it. They've been here forever and they've never left, and they don't understand problems in the city. You know, they're just like fucking, they don't get it, and they don't care to get it, you know? Like if in order, like then, which is fine, but I'm like, don't chime in on these people's problems, like the Black Lives Matter fucking movement and shit.
Mhm.
There's like 4 black people here. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
You know, and they don't fucking get it, you know, and but it's all right. There's some cool shit to it too, though. You know, it's not all bad. You know, I shouldn't just shit on it. I'm kind of bitter right now because, like, I don't know. I'm just kind of bitter about being here. I think 4 years of Trump has really burned me out on the whole small town mentality and the Black Lives Matter shit. And not to get too political, because I don't really like Democrats all that much either, you know, but what I do like is people's choices and people to be treated respectfully, you know, and that's a lot of what I didn't feel like was coming when he was in office. And, but so I'm kind of burnt out on the area. But anyways, where have you all lived, man? You bounced around a lot when you were in the military, when your dad was in the military.
Yeah, the most significant places were there was North Carolina, Texas, Chicago, Washington twice, and Florida. So I know what you're talking about the Florida hate. Florida's a tough place to get used to.
Do you like it after you got used to it? Because I mean, I've only passed through on tour, and so maybe it's a lot of people hate Eastern Oregon. And even though I just shit on it, I mean, I love Eastern Oregon still and Eastern Washington. So,
you know what? The winters are unbelievable in Florida. I mean, because the humidity is not a factor. You're talking about 70 degrees, 75 degrees.
It's a bitch in the summer, though.
The summer is when all the evil comes out. Because number one, you got the biggest of everything. You got the huge spiders. You got the big snakes. Lizards, all that shit, alligators. Don't go swimming in fresh water in Florida. I mean, there's signs, but the thing that got me actually real quick is the lightning. One thing they don't tell you about Florida is in the summertime, you're going to lose 2 hours of the day to one of the most horrific thunderstorms of your life, especially if you're on the side of the Gulf of Mexico instead of the Atlantic Ocean. Oh, man. But the Gulf of Mexico is a hot bathtub. And so it generates crazy electricity. And I've seen lightning hit the ground down in Florida. And what happens when lightning hits the ground is it almost like licks back up. You can see it kind of lick back up a little bit. And Florida's a gnarly place to live. I think that we were only there for a year, so I didn't have enough time to really soak it in. But if you can get over the humidity in the summertime, the people are pretty wild, pretty ready and available to have a good time. And you have a choice of some great cities. Tampa's a great city. You got St. Petersburg. It's a great city. And then Miami, of course, it's expensive, but Florida's not so bad. The football there is insane as well. You get like a 10-year-olds playing football. There's 500 people in the stands, an announcer, food, all that stuff.
It's funny you say that because you're from Texas. I figured Texas would be the place where you saw that kind of action. As Texas football is like notorious.
I was way too young. To know any of that stuff. But yeah, I would, the Deep South in general. And that's one thing that people up here don't get about people in the Deep South is that it's a completely different country almost.
Totally.
And that's one of our issues. I've never been.
Louisiana is a different country in its own. Even it's a different part of the South, man. It's totally different. I love Louisiana. You ever get a chance, man, as a young gentlemen, you should take a trip down there just to go explore a bit, man. So you either love it or hate it, though. So I'm not guaranteeing you'll like it, but I loved it, Louisiana. You want to talk about Southern hospitality? I found that shit directly in Louisiana. Fuck Texas. Fuck fucking just about every other fucking Southern state. That's where Southern hospitality was invented, in my opinion, is Louisiana.
Yeah, I got to get down there because I was telling my co-host this as well. But I'm going to hire a witch to help me get some success.
Dude, that's not a bad idea, man.
Why not? Yeah.
Fuck it. You might as well. You got to record the whole process, though, if she'll let you. She
I
might
will.
not. She might not. But yeah, and you might. I'm not sure if you'll find too many witches down there, but you maybe find some voodoo queens.
That's what I'm talking about. A little Haitian voodoo.
Yeah, there you go, man.
Mhm.
That's something. I don't know. I get leery about fucking with shit like that, but but I'm pretty superstitious, and I find that most people that are superstitious, that shit affects negatively, and the people that aren't, it doesn't really seem to bug them that much. But yeah, man, Louisiana's a cool state, man. It really is, and every inch of it, from New Orleans to the little bayou towns, that you've come across along the way. Even the cops are fucking nice there, super nice.
Got to be lenient in a tourist heavy area. Otherwise, you'll build a bad reputation. I'm telling you, man, I'm thinking of maybe bouncing. I love to be near my family, to be in reach of my family, to get together for Christmas. I'm a diehard Michigan fan. So is my dad. So to be able to watch football with him on Saturdays is very important to me. But Seattle, the living is tough, especially if you're up and coming.
It was tough 10 years ago, man, when I was up there. And it's gotten worse in every sense of the fucking word worse. Seattle's gotten worse. It's got more expensive, dirtier, everything great about that city. They fucking robbed, raped, pillaged, and fucking killed. There ain't much left in Seattle anymore. I like Tacoma better myself.
Tacoma's nice. Yeah. You still don't have that. It's growing a little bit in downtown, especially. You can have the pedestrian city life, and the art is all in Tacoma now because artists can't afford to live in Seattle. So all the art is coming. Hilltop is a desirable neighborhood. I mean, Hilltop's become an expensive neighborhood. If you know anything about Hilltop, that was not the case 10 years ago. So
no. I have friends that live there for 15 years, and they're lucky because they've lived there for 15 years, and their landlord's cool, so they haven't raised the rent yet, but it's kind of like Ballard.
You were seeing working class apartments all over the place, from Olympia all the way up to Seattle. Seattle is gone. Seattle, you're paying minimum. You might find a $1,200 for a studio. Some places that's real old. We're really talking about $1,800 starting out in downtown in Seattle. It's unbelievable. But Seattle has become. I'll get into that in a second. What I was going to say is.
Sorry, I keep bouncing around and distracting you too. I'm not a good host sometimes.
No, you're doing wonderful. It's just I have a lot of passion for this subject in particular because
let's get back to why you're thinking about bouncing.
Yeah, my brother he's in a working class apartment in Olympia, and they've raised his rent like $100, $200. Now they raised it $300. It's $1,300 a month. It's a working class, bare bones, very humble apartment. And Seattle has become, and this is what I was talking about, maybe finding a different city. Seattle's become a zombie movie where I've seen overdoses before, and you see people who are like, their legs are still working, but the top half of their body's falling asleep. Yep. Now that's everybody. It's par for the course. 12th and Jackson, 3rd and Pine are the worst of it, but we're saying open drug markets in Chinatown by people in the hundreds. You could see it on, Instagram, that people are posting videos left and right, especially what's left of our small businesses, which is there's not much left. But you're seeing homeless people who are strung out, giving half-assed CPR to other homeless, and this is in the day. And so you're thinking, what are you paying for? Mm-hmm. It's dangerous. It's gone to hell. What are you paying for?
And Portland is right behind Seattle. Last time I went to Portland, I literally saw a guy take a fucking shit right in downtown. Just projectile gray shit, right? Gray too. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? And then and I'm thinking, because okay, so this is kind of funny to bounce kind of back to it'd been a while since I've been to Portland, at least downtown Portland, probably about a year. And it didn't take long for it to get in that state. you know? So I'm hearing all these people from the local being like, it's bullshit. It's like a third world country. They got tents everywhere. People just shitting in the middle of the street, something. And it's like the South Park hillbillies around here, right? So I'm like, you guys are fucking idiots. It's not like that, because most of the people don't even fucking go there. And then I go there and I'm like, I'll be damned. It is fucked up. It was fucked up, man. And Seattle's worse, man. Jesus fucking Christ, man. What the fuck happened, man? It's just, I mean, I know what happened. I mean, people, they thought it was cute to let these homeless people live there. And it was essentially because they didn't have to do any work. Because you get all these liberals that are like, oh, you can't fucking treat homeless people like shit, you know? You can't do that to them. That's taking away their rights, you know? But they don't understand like the consequences. Now they're fucking seeing it. And the people that are in charge that are supposed to be making these hard decisions and pissing people off, being like, no, fuck you. We need to get these homeless people out of here. We need to figure something out. We need to figure out more resources or just fucking do something in general. They're like, oh, well, the city likes it, so we don't have to dump any money in it. We'll just give each other raises, you know?
Oh, yeah. And the theft is blatant.
Oh, fuck.
Blatant shoplifting.
Sorry to keep fucking bulldozing over you, man, but my friends and my backing band, they're in another band called Stone Evergreen Travelers, and they played a show at El Corazon, and their friend was there. He walked outside, got into an altercation with the homeless camp across the street from fucking El Corazon, and something happened. They were talking shit to each other. I don't know who started it. I really know Ryan pretty well. And I'm pretty sure that even if he was drunk, he wouldn't just spout some shit off, you know, to be a dick. That's not his personality. But if somebody spouted off to him and he was drunk, he might fucking take it, you know, and roll with it. But anyways, long story short, a fucking homeless guy from the camp across the street hit him in the back of the fucking head with like a baseball bat or some shit, put him in the fucking hospital and almost fucking killed him. Guy doesn't have a license, doesn't have an identity. They did manage to find him regardless of that. Somebody fucking spotted him somehow, probably because the people at El Corazon were pissed and were watching for him and probably pulled cameras and did everything they fucking possibly could to fucking find this guy. They arrested him, took him in, booked him, gave him a sleeping bag, and sent him back out on the fucking way.
Yeah.
That was attempted fucking murder. And they just fucking released the cocksucker and gave him a fucking sleeping bag so he could go fucking do it to somebody else. Remain warm while he did it.
I was in Capitol Hill. And I was in Capitol Hill on my way to buy weed at the Reef, which is granted a great weed store. So I was walking down there, and the Reef is one of the routes you can take. It takes you behind South Seattle or Seattle Central Community College, like that main community college in Capitol Hill. And there was some girl, and I saw her. As soon as I saw her, she looked concerned. She was maybe like 20, a college student, and I noted that. And then I heard this homeless dude. He was drinking. He was talking about all the different ways he was going to rape her. And I was like, oh, fucking shit. What am I supposed to do? Because so like, I didn't want to catch up to her, but I got in between her and the dude. This guy was maybe, he was maybe 100 steps away from her. He was shouting this at her, and she would have had time to run into more populated areas. But this area was very residential. So it was really just us three. So I sort of got in between, and I was praying to God I wouldn't have to touch this guy or mess with him, you know, like I was praying, and he just kept yelling the disgusting shit. And so somebody yelled, I'm calling 911. And he said, do it, bitch. It happens all the time. The cops won't do shit. And I was going like, he's right. The cops aren't going to do anything. And, you know, that's another question I have for you. I don't know if anybody's going to have the answer to this. And I'm of the belief for the audience, I'm not right or left. I think both of them are fucking us from both sides. You know, you look at Dan Crenshaw, Republican, and you look at, who's the other lady? Nancy Pelosi. They're both getting rich on stocks that should be totally illegal with insider trading. And they tell us one thing left and right. They feed off of each other, and they're fucking us and making millions of dollars. That's what I believe. But why is it?
They don't hate each other as much as they say they do. You know, they've got a racket going on, and they know. As long as we're bitching, you know, it's like a reality TV show at this point. They're setting things up, so we all go at each other. It's like fucking high school football mentality. Anyway, sorry, keep going, buddy.
Well, right off of that is, I think that's why things like the Joe Rogan issue, Neil Young,
Oh,
takes
I
his
wanted to
music off
talk
because
to you
of Joe
about that. I'm glad
Rogan.
we naturally got to this point because I was going to ask you about this. Keep going.
Well, I think they bring that shit up so that we fight amongst each other. And then on the other hand, what's going on in Afghanistan because of us, horrific right now. People are freezing to death. People are getting killed by Al Qaeda. You'll notice after we pulled out of Afghanistan, all the news organizations stopped covering it.
Mhm.
So we have, and there are real atrocities going on.
Even
More people have,
Fox, who is supposed to be covering shit that's not
yes.
liberal, they don't give a fuck either. They
I mean,
stop.
more people have committed suicide this year than COVID. More people have overdosed on opioids this year than COVID. And, it's like there's all these issues going on, but all this like quick, easy shit gets. What about Joe Rogan? What about Neil Young? Who are you going to choose? All of this stuff. I feel like, I don't know if it's coming from politicians, but there is a lot of stuff that's being a part of an agenda to keep us from really focusing on institutional bullshit.
And regardless, in my opinion, regardless of what Joe Rogan's stances are on vaccines, on COVID, on how to cure COVID, or his guests, censoring that is dangerous. People just need to learn how to do proper research and think for them fucking selves, because once we do start censoring that shit, they get more control.
Yeah.
And it's weird to me because I'm a Neil Young fan, but this kind of pissed me off because he's a guy that's always challenged authority and he's challenged people's thinking, and he's challenged government regulations. So to have him go, no, shut up, Joe Rogan, like pull this guy's shit off or I'm going to pull my music off. It really sat shitty with me. I mean, I didn't like it because I'm just like, look, dude, like, if these idiots are taking horse dewormer or fucking following this guy's advice, that's their problem. But when we stop allowing people to say whatever, then that's when truth stops being able to come out. Because if you think about how many things seemed ridiculous back in the day that make perfect sense now, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we could go back to people thinking the earth is flat. I mean, I know people still do, are thinking that stars were like gods, like, and we're not that advanced. We're not as advanced as we think we are. We're much smarter, but we've got a lot to learn. So when we start shutting everything up, somebody someday is going to have some insane idea. Nobody's going to believe them. Because it's happened multiple times. Like somebody's, oh, this guy's insane. This is crazy. But they're right, And that's where I get worried. It's like, it's dangerous to shut people up. Even racism and shit like that. Like, why put that shit in a closet, dude? Like, I want to know if somebody's racist because I don't want to be around them,
Right. Well, the point of free speech always, if speech doesn't offend you, you're not going to want to silence it. The point of free speech and the reason we're granted that is to protect the speech that makes people go, what the fuck did you just say? Like that's the point of having free speech laws and free speech protection. So, shit like that really gets me thinking. It really gets me thinking about, I'll tell you what, if I was China or if I was Russia and I really wanted to do some fucked up shit and make America fight amongst each other, maybe I'd go to Neil Young, who's old. He doesn't have any intention. I'd go, listen, give you a small 15 million. This is what I want you to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think that maybe a lot of this, America's never been more divided. We fight and we hate each other so much.
Well,
do you think part of it is like spies in Russia and China doing PR stunts and shit like that?
Who knows, man? It could be. I don't rule anything out.
Yeah.
I really don't, because it's definitely possible. I don't rule out the fact that COVID's man-made. I don't rule shit out because I'm not I don't consider myself educated enough or within reason to, I don't understand a virus. I don't understand like the complexity of these things to be able to break it down. I understand technology, but with how things are these days and with it as advanced, I wouldn't rule shit out. I wouldn't rule this out for Russia, China, fucking. I'm sure they're loving it. I don't blame them. We fucking shit on them forever. That's the thing about America is we've always claimed to be the greatest country, but we're not really. We are assholes. We are the young punk bitches on the block. And that's what scares the shit out of me is that not enough people understand that. And eventually, every fucking motherfucker that runs their mouth, talks shit, and pisses people off gets their fucking day. And our day is fucking coming.
Yeah.
We've lied. We've rewritten history to make ourselves the good guy in every fucking war we've ever been in. We brainwash kids into thinking that they're going to be a fucking patriot to die for this country when they're fucking going to fight for blood money. You know, like we're fucking evil. We are an evil country. We are the fucking villains in everybody else's story. And people don't get that here because we've written history to make us sound like heroes. We probably haven't been the heroes since World War II. Maybe a little later. But come Vietnam around the 60s, that's when shit starts getting real shady. You know, like it's when like JFK starts getting assassinated. Martin Luther King gets assassinated. You know, and you really start seeing where old money is fighting for change or fighting change. You know, and yeah, I kind of really forgot where we were going with this, but I mean, like the old saying says, every dog has her day. I'm scared shitless what's going to happen, you know? And I would almost hope it would be like Europe or somebody that's good though, that puts us in check, like Australia, Canada, fucking Europe, people that have like good intentions, countries that have good intentions, places that people run to for sanctuary. That would put us in check, but it's going to be the fucking people that are even shittier than us, like China and Russia. You know, they've got some fucked up shit going on. Or the Saudi Arabia is pissed at us too right now, I think.
Why?
Maybe it's not Saudi Arabia. What country are we practically starving right now? There's all kinds of shit going on that's fucked up in the world that we're doing to people. If you look at it, I can't remember what it was. We were pretty much starving a country for a minute this summer. It was in the news slightly. But I know that the Saudi Arabia doesn't really like us just because their way of life doesn't really go with ours. And we're constantly putting our shit in their face, you know?
I think we have a good business relationship with them because we buy a lot of their oil and stuff like that. I think with the United States, like Russia or like China, when you're that powerful, power is evil. So that's where it comes from. Having power makes you evil. I'll tell you what's scary about the U.S. empire being in jeopardy is, number one, you look at divide and conquer. So we're being divided from the inside, which makes us weak, you know, and we have so much more in common. You know, the amount of power and money that's held by such a small population is really what we have in common. You know, so many Americans are struggling with the same things. And, you know, so there's that one end, you know, we are so divided right now, and that makes us vulnerable. But at the same time, I'll tell you when shit's going to go down. So, of course, there's some issues with if Russia invades Ukraine, whether or not we'll get involved. That's one thing. But if China invades Taiwan, I think we've already said we're going to get involved. And a war with China, man, I don't even think they need weapons. They have so many people. You just walk in a straight line. They might beat us just doing that. That's when shit's going to get crazy, because that's when also not only do you have a regular war, but you also have hacking, and you have hacking bank systems now, personal computers. The war with China is going to get fucking nasty. And their education system is much better than our education system.
Oh boy, is it.
So
now, I mean, I think our weapons and our military are probably a lot better than China, but you're right. They're smarter than us. And our weapons don't mean shit if they can fucking make them blow up on ourselves. You know, and they probably can. They can probably control our weapons. And these idiots over here running shit probably have no fucking idea that they can.
Or shut down a bank temporarily. Get into Bank of America, shut it down for a couple of days. The power grid.
things that people don't think about, that people take advantage of. The internet nowadays, everything's done on the internet. If the internet was gone, what the fuck would we do? Like,
Imagine this.
we have
Imagine Chicago for a second. So we're talking January 15th, Chicago. We're in a war with China, and they shut off the heat.
Mhm.
Dead. Thousands and thousands dead.
Yeah, man, and it's a possibility, dude. Like, also, I mean, I don't know how much stock is in this, but apparently they have control over, like, you know, people's cars are hooked up to computer systems now, and they have control over that. So you got to start your car up, you can't even start your fucking car up.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know how true that is, but there's a lot of things, you know, and I feel like somebody should come along and play dad almost and just turn everything off for like a day just to scare the shit out of people and be like, see, that's what it's like without internet and power. Like, people used to survive without this shit. Like, what would you fuckers do? Like, appreciate this shit. Learn how to do things on your own, because people don't understand that. I try to tell my daughter this shit could go away. You know,
It is going away. Look at the shelves in grocery stores right now.
Yep.
A lot of them are empty.
Oh yeah, man. You're right, dude. And that's scary. And I was talking with somebody the other day. My buddy Felix, he's a special education teacher. He's a pretty smart guy, pretty weird. People fucking don't get him a lot of the times, but he was talking to me and he said, you know, COVID doesn't scare me half as much as like what my stores look like right now and inflation. You know, I feel like that's getting better, so we might get lucky, but there was a time where I was getting nervous, real fucking nervous about fucking what the store shelves were looking like, you know, and there's a lot of people out there to feed these days, man. Famine could be a fucking issue, and it has in the past. That all this shit has happened in the fucking past, and people they don't want to look at this shit. Like, same with the like COVID, people are like, oh, it's fake. Like, oh yeah, so like every fucking plague ever is fake. Like, just because we have technology and shit doesn't mean it can't happen again, and it will. You dumb shits. We've got a volcano brewing. We've got all this shit that we need to think about, you know, and fucking asteroids potentially hitting, you know, like you can't look at the whole sky. There could be one heading for us in a week and they haven't spotted it yet, you know? And there's all this shit that could happen. But you're right, man. That's a very valid point. Like, it's scary. Like I said, I feel like the shelves are getting stocked a little bit more, but it's still not full. And but I was getting really worried for a minute, and it could happen still.
I'm hearing we're going to have issues with meat. So pork is going to, sometimes it's going to be pork in short supply. Like, that's what I had an issue with. They didn't have any ground pork at my grocery store, or like hardly any pork at all. But getting meat is going to be tough for a little while. The supply chain, I'm hearing, is just going to be, it's going to be on and off for a while. There's going to be issues, especially right now. We have such a terrible issue with truck drivers. We don't have any truck drivers. So now they're trying to scramble and say, okay, I think in Washington State, but they're thinking about passing legislation where you can be 17 and get your CDL now.
Really?
Which is kind of scary, man. I'm telling you, it's a little scary to have a 17-year-old driving one of those things.
For a while, they were trying to make it so you had to be 21 to get your fucking driver's license. I think. So, like, yeah, it's one extreme to the next, for sure. You can't smoke cigarettes or fucking drink beer, but you can drive a fucking semi truck.
Yeah. Hey, why do you think, real quick, why do you think, and this is why I said I'm not left or right, but why is it that the liberal cities are having such an issue with like the decay and the homelessness? And I myself, you mentioned you saw a homeless person take a gray shit. I've seen over 4 homeless people's buttholes, just like being in Seattle. You know, like, why is it liberal cities typically that deal with that?
I don't know, man. That's a great question. That's why I don't like either one of them, you know? And the funny thing is the liberals will fucking spoon feed people shit they want to hear. You know, of course, I'm definitely more left leaning. I fucking agree that women should have the right to abort their children if they fucking need to, within reason. I don't think it should be a fucking birth control option. And I mean, it definitely should be done very early, but that's their right. I think that weed should be legal. I think gays should be able to fucking get married freely. I think that if you want to fucking, if you're born a male and you want to be a female, fucking, you should be able to fucking do that. Like, as long as you're not hurting somebody with your choices in life, I don't see why the fuck it's a problem.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why anybody thinks they have the opinion to tell somebody that what's right for them. Like little Susie gets fucking molested by her uncle at 15 and she can't abort a child in fucking Texas now without being a felon. Fuck that. It's fucking bullshit. And on top of that, they're like paying people to narc these people off. Has anybody ever watched the movie Dirty Dancing? Jesus fucking Christ. There's a reason they legalized the shit. Because if you don't, then you start doing it in back alley shit, and fucking poor little girls start fucking dying, getting sick, and having these terrible traumatic experiences. I mean, there's a lot of things in the world that aren't pleasant, and for me, why does somebody have the right to tell that little 15-year-old girl that she can't abort that child? She shouldn't have to fucking have that inbred baby and raise it at 15 because her uncle's a piece of shit or whatever, And I know not every situation is like that. I get it, but at the same time, a 21-year-old girl that makes a bad choice or fucking condom blows out on her fucking one night stand from the bar, and there's situations too where my buddy got his fucking wife pregnant. She was on the pill and he used a condom. And there's just these freak circumstances.
Wait. Hold on. Did he get a DNA test?
No, but that kid looks exactly like him.
Okay.
Maybe he did. I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't say he did or didn't, And also he's kind of a bit of a bullshitter too. So who knows? Like maybe his fucking old lady, and his old lady's not exactly the fucking most trustworthy bitch in the world. I don't think she would lie to him and tell him his kids, but I could see her like wanting a baby and being like, But I mean, there are circumstances like that, freak circumstances. Like, or a chick will get pregnant with her tubes tied, or a guy will shoot a wad out when he's got a vasectomy. It happens, There's sometimes you get those swimmers that are just fucking relentless,
I didn't know that. I thought once you get the snip, that's it. No more kids.
Maybe for a guy, but for a female, they can get through the tubes.
Got it.
For sure.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
With the abortion thing, that's when I go back to like this country is divided into multiple different countries really just culture wise. With the abortion thing, like the Bible with some people, it is live or die by the Bible. And so that's I think some people are just in the Bible. That's the thing. It's cleverly worded where it almost enforces that you should live or die by me. It doesn't matter if everybody else hates you. You have to believe in this. And so when it comes to something like abortion, that's why people won't even make it into office unless they say I'm a diehard Christian in some parts of the country.
Oh,
so
Obama God is Christian.
Yeah, I remember that.
He was like, fuck it, I guess, whatever, I'm Christian.
Yeah, he was like, by the way, I'm a Christian. Uh-huh.
Yeah. But anyways, I think we're going someplace about you moving. Where would you move to if you were going to bounce?
Yeah, so I think that I don't know. I got my eye on Indianapolis. I love sunshine though. So everybody's moving to Phoenix, and it's like one of those it's like the new Austin, Texas. I don't think it's always been kind of Austin, Texas used to be. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if I will move 100% because I think part of enjoying life is being able to watch like the Michigan football game with your dad. So I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do, but I would like to go to a cleaner city with more opportunity. The amount of money you're paying to live in the greater Seattle area is not worth the cost. No.
And also, and you gotta wait. It's funny too, because it's kind of like, we are kind of in a situation like I was talking about earlier where, where like my side of the state always talks about how, or, small town people always talk shit about the city, but a lot of people never leave. A lot of people never go out and experience other things. They like to talk about their problems or whatever, right? We are kind of in the same situation with the Pacific Northwest and maybe the West Coast, actually, just in general.
Yeah.
Where we're, we have all these problems, and we think a lot of them are countrywide problems, but they're not. Like inflation over here and bullshit over here. Like you were just saying, all these are green, or these are all blue states.
Mm-hmm.
California, Oregon, and Washington are very blue states, and we're probably got the worst economies in the country right now. Really, they'll try to tell you they don't, but and
Because of the big businesses that are here.
Oh, and they're raising the wages. Amazons are going up everywhere. Everybody's working, blah blah blah. When they're not really, but people at McDonald's are making $17 an hour. But really, one of the most thriving economies right now, and I've been looking into this because I've actually been thinking about moving myself. That's why I bring this up, is like, because for the same thing, I'm like, and even everything's raised here. I used to stay in Eastern Oregon because it was cheaper than, everywhere else in Oregon.
Yeah.
And that's what made it worth it. Being 3 hours away from a city, is that my rent was $650 a month for a 2-bedroom house. Now the Amazon's been moving in, dude. Like we're getting in Portland territory in a lot of places. Wow. You can still find a gem and get lucky. Like I got a 2-bedroom apartment right now for $850, but most 2-bedroom apartments are about $1,500, and that's happened over like the last 3 years. Most 2-bedroom apartments 3 years ago were probably like $550 a month, and that's what made it worth living over here for me, besides just my family being here. But I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I'm kind of just burnt out. I kind of want something new. But like Kansas has got a pretty good economy. Rent's pretty cheap there, and the wages are pretty high. They're not too far. I mean, they're not as good as here, but their rent isn't insane.
Yeah.
Missouri, you mentioned Kansas City. That's a pretty good city right now, from what I understand, to live in. And I like Kansas City. That's where I'm kind of looking at. Louisiana is not too bad. That's another place, but it's humid as fuck. So I don't know if I want to be there all year round.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Not all year.
Yeah. Yeah, because the summers are pretty miserable down there. As much as I like Louisiana, it stinks during the summer. It's sticky. I never feel clean.
North Carolina's fantastic.
I love North Carolina. When you mentioned that you lived in North Carolina, it's one of my favorite states, dude. Mm-hmm. And they always get shit on because of the whole public bathroom thing. Like, a bunch of stupid people live there. Fuck, I love North Carolina. What a great barbecue.
Yeah, everything. You got the beach, you got the hills, you got the Smoky Mountains. Oh, unbelievable. You got everything in between. The barbecue.
What's the economy like, though? I haven't looked into the economy. That's not bad.
It's fantastic.
Is it?
Raleigh and Charlotte are thriving right now. Yeah, it's doing absolutely wonderful. You got Greensboro, if you don't want that big of a city either.
Fayetteville.
Fayetteville sucks. I don't like Fayetteville.
It's kind of got a shitty reputation. I always had good shows there, but everybody called it Vietnam. So
yeah.
What city would you compare Fayetteville to in Washington besides Seattle?
I don't even know. Like, what do you think? Lakewood?
Maybe, yeah.
Fayetteville's just kind of like a dry,
SeaTac,
nondescript place. What do you say?
SeaTac?
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
I lived in SeaTac. I actually like SeaTac. I don't know. I feel good in the ghetto, though, man. Like, even though I'm a white country boy, like the ghetto, at least the ones in Washington. I shouldn't say. I'm probably sure I wouldn't do too well in Compton, but like in the Pacific Northwest, where it's like white people, like, yeah, of course they're majority black, but like they're a little more accustomed to having white people flow into their area, living there, and like SeaTac, an area like that, But yeah, SeaTac maybe.
About 10 years ago, so probably right around when you were living there, it was actually the most dangerous. I think 2014 or 2013, it was the most dangerous place to live in the United States of America.
SeaTac was?
Tukwila.
Oh, Tukwila?
Yeah. So basically,
yeah, I mean, that's right there. That whole stretch is pretty much the same thing. Federal Way, fucking Des Moines, and Tukwila and SeaTac. I mean, it's all pretty much the same area. I loved it, man. And I was in there. I was probably You know, it's funny because you mentioned that it was actually, it was longer than 10 years ago. It feels like 10 years, but I'm getting old. It was probably closer to 15. It was like probably 2006, 2007 when I was up there, but it was still pretty dangerous, man. And it probably, it probably didn't get better by 2012. It probably was one of the most dangerous places in America. Cause when I was there, it was like nothing to just see pimps and hoes and crackheads walking around. It was fucking nuts. And I was working at a graveyard shift at a 7-Eleven.
Were the pimps and hoes shopping in there?
Oh yeah, dude. I would help the hoes out sometimes. They would like come in running from the cops and I'd be like, go get in the bathroom, you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are they attractive typically?
Not really.
Okay.
They're definitely not what you would think they look like. And sometimes it's sad too, because like there's a couple of them that are pretty cute, but I don't know if I would fuck them, you know, and I'm pretty dirty, you know?
Yeah.
There was one in general I was pretty attracted to and thought about maybe swinging the bat on, but I didn't. That's kind of, I should explain that term. Like a buddy of mine always would refer to like hooking up with chicks is like, he talked to the shy guys that can never get laid. He'd be like, you can't hit the ball if you don't swing the bat. So that's what I mean when I say swing the bat for the listeners. But I thought about going for one once just because she was pretty cute and kind of cool. But I was like, fuck it. You know, I don't think so. And they're kind of gross too. They're dirty, man. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, they ain't showered in days. They're just fucking getting cum all over them and shit, cleaning up in the bathrooms, you know. But anyways, the cops would chase them and they just run in the store, you know. And there's a couple, if they were cool to me, I would, because we had a bathroom outside behind the fucking main International Boulevard. Mm-hmm. We had a bathroom outside. They were supposed to lock it up at night because I actually had to fucking pull a guy out of there that was fucking overdosing one time. And I'd give him the keys and just be like, run out there and take the key in the bathroom with you, and I'll come out and knock on the door. Like at a knock, I'd give them if they were like, once the cops are clear. But yeah, but yeah, they're not good looking, most of them, 90% of them. And then what I was going to say is it's sad too, because some of them are young, dude.
Right.
Young. Most of them are just old fucking tweaker bitches, black usually, you know, but young. Some of them are young, and it's sad to see them out there because they get with these guys that are just pieces of shit. You know, there's one used to roll around in like an old fucking 1970s Suburban, just fucking stacked with hoes, dude. He'd fucking pull up in the fucking parking lot of someplace, and all these hoes would jump out and start fucking walking up and down the street. And then you'd see him pull back in an hour later. They'd jump in, he'd go someplace else and dump them back out, you know. But
that's incredible. You know, I think about that sometimes. I would not be able to do that with women. I don't have, even from a skill, forget ethics, but from a skill set to be able to have that type of
how
control.
Do you do
I don't know.
And
I don't know.
It's got to be like they attract each other too. You know, like there's got to be a certain type of woman, and sadly, it's like it's probably a line of abuse. All these girls have daddy issues and shit, or shitty parents. Like maybe their moms are hookers too. I know, like I've got a cousin that was hooking, and it's because her mom's a bitch, you know? So like, that's where a lot of it starts too, you know, and drugs. But you're right, man. Like what type of person can pull that off or would want to?
I don't know. You know, there's a book, and Dave Chappelle talked about it in one of his stand-up specials. It's like The Story of a Pimp by Iceberg Slim, but you can hear the audio
I've heard about Iceberg Slim.
And he talks about, you know, you got to beat the shit out of him a little bit. Then after you beat the shit out of him, you got to give him a bath with some Vicodin, make him feel better, tell him you love him. And you really have to, it's like a push and pull type thing to get somebody in that. You know, I'll tell you what I could do. And I feel uncomfortable saying this. So I used to put West Coast radio on my resume, and it would get me job interviews, but it would not get me the job because they would listen to the show. I do think I could turn somebody into a school shooter. I could do that. I could identify the lonely kid. I could befriend the lonely kid, and slowly over maybe 2-3 months, I could make him do some fucked up shit if I wanted to. Absolutely.
Jesus fucking Christ.
I would have that down. You know, you got a friend in me. I just need you to do this. I could get that done. Absolutely.
Fuck.
I always used to look for the school shooter when I was at school. I always would, because I had a Spanish final, and some dude from the engineering department at Seattle U threatened to shoot the school up because he got really stressed out. So it's a legitimate thing. We talked about this, I think, last time you were on the show. But
Yeah, because
I always
of school shootings and shit.
I always do a scan for who's going to be the school shooter. Like, who do I got to be extra nice to?
Yeah, I think I kind of was too. I can be a real fucking asshole, sometimes, but I was friends with people, that were probably candidates, at least. Well, I know. I mean, here's an example. My two good friends got kicked out of school around Columbine because they all dressed in black after the fucking shooting.
Oh my, I know exactly what type of asshole type you're talking about that would do that.
Oh yeah, and the only reason they did it is because we were in a small town. Everybody's flipping out, and they were, of anybody who wears all black is like, all the parents were like, anybody who wears this symbol or listens to this music or wears this kind of clothes. It was bullshit, completely bullshit. And then the principal literally was like, anybody who wears all black to school gets suspended. So of course, my friends, and then that just labeled them for like years as the guy. Like my buddy went out and bought a trench coat after the fucking Columbine shooting. And if you wore a trench coat back then, right after the Columbine shooting, you were fucked up, because that's what they both wore.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
They both wore trench coats in so they could have shotguns in there and shit. And a couple kids that watched The Crow too many times,
I thought that, for sure. And thank God it didn't happen, it did happen once, but when kids were going to school with masks on, that left schools so vulnerable, because you get some dude in there that's not a student. He's got a mask over his face. He can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Or a student in general.
You could stay hidden. You do a school shooting, run out with the crowd. You got your mask on. You're hidden from the camera, hidden from people. That was a really scary time, but thankfully nothing really serious happened except for that one unfortunate situation in Michigan, which, by the way, that kid who did the Michigan shooting, he just pled insanity. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah.
Who knows?
To me, though, and I think we talked about this. We did talk about this when you interviewed me, and because you were picking my brain about mental health. I think anybody who has the mentality to do a mass shooting is obviously mentally ill. Mm-hmm. They're obviously insane. Why else would they do it? Like, so it shouldn't even be an option, really. I mean, where you got to draw the line is like, how mentally ill are they? Like, are they mentally ill enough to where you could put them in a home and take all of their resources away from them, and they wouldn't be smart enough to do it without,
right?
Or are you dealing with somebody who's smart enough that if you put them in, like, say, a state hospital, where it's basically like a jail, but you have more freedom, and boo, knock it off. But you have more freedom, but you can make pieces move more there. You can cause a lot of chaos inside a fucking state hospital, and you can be detrimental to people who are mentally ill but wouldn't hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, from a guy that runs a mental health facility, some murderers who claim insanity should still go to prison, or maybe there should be a special place for them. But there's just different levels of mentally ill. But anybody who would commit that act is obviously insane.
If you have to spend the rest of your life in one situation or the other, what is worse, the prison stay or the mental hospital stay? Like, where that guy would go?
It's hard telling, man. I think, first off, a mental health hospital or state hospital is probably less dangerous physically.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not raping, there's not a lot of abuse physically. I mean, there is, but it's like not like prison abuse, like mentally ill people, when than when they hit somebody or they throw shit. It's different than being forcefully raped by like a fucking dude in prison. Or it's
Absolutely.
different than being gang beat by a fucking Aryan Brotherhoods or fucking, whatever, the Latin Kings or whatever, And then there's
Mhm.
not gangs. You almost like, in order to make it in prison, you almost have to find a clique right out the gate when you go in there, and you have to prove yourself, and they almost train you to be a better criminal in there. So I think you have more rights in prison too. Like, I don't think they're going to give you, well, maybe they will. Yeah, they will. Well, so nowadays state hospitals too are supposed to be more of a temporary stay. So a lot of times, and in Oregon, they're trying to make it a month stay, which is ridiculous. If you work in the system and you understand how it works, it's dumb. You just can't get everybody stable enough to leave in a month. It's just impossible.
Mhm.
But I think what they're trying to do is eliminate people that are there for fucking 5 years and they're doing fine, but can't find other placement because they've got a bad history. And people are like, oh, fuck, that's scary. We don't want to take this person, even though they were legitimately insane and don't know what they were doing, And I think we talked about this a bit on the last show that we did together too. There are fucking cases where somebody will go into a state of mania and not know what they're doing and then just come out of it. That's proven that. And they're even doing studies now. Like there's a whole Hulu documentary about people that murder their spouses when they're sleepwalking. So like
on Ambien or something?
probably I'm going to assume, but who knows though, and then those people got to be on drugs like Ambien too.
Yeah.
And you throw those meds in there and you got somebody that's got a bad med reaction and they don't tell their psychologist or their therapist. And there's just so many moving pieces that it's like, you have to be like, there's so many different levels of mental health, so many different moving pieces that, it just depends, man, but I'll tell you, if I had to pick, this is me personally, and I'm not everybody, and and obviously not everybody's choice is this, because there's people that claim insanity to get out of it. I think I just go to prison.
Okay.
I think after a few months there, I'd probably fall in just fine. I make friends pretty easy. Like I said, like I'm a white country guy. I moved to the ghetto and got along just fine. I think I could move to prison and like not join a white supremacist gang and not fucking, fuck, I don't know. I'm sure I'd have to fight somebody or fucking have my fucking lunch taken from me. And I'm kind of a bitch like that. But I know people that are more of a bitch than me. This is what makes me fucking feel like I could make it in prison. I know people that are way more of a bitch than me that have been to prison for years. Like I could make it. I'm pretty sure. And you have more rights in prison than you do in a mental health home. I'm pretty sure the drugs are probably better in a state hospital. You could get fucking whatever and anxiety drugs and shit. But, but yeah, I'd like make a bunch of fucking weird prison food and eat it in my cell. And there's another thing too. And I'm pretty good at like sitting there and doing nothing. Like I can sit in a room for like 2 hours and like nothing on and just space out and think about shit. Like I'm sure prison would be different. And I'm sure that I would hate it after a while. But I think I'd probably manage a little better than the average person because I'm just so good at doing nothing. I just read books and work out and eat fucking weird food probably and fucking, I don't think it's as bad as the movies make it either. Most people will tell you that. Like there's not a bunch of people just raping each other. Rape happens obviously in there, but there's not just dudes butt fucking you every day.
Well, that's what you want to avoid right there. That's what scares people about prison is you don't want to get raped, and then the bathroom situation seems pretty fucking awful.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to keep clean bathrooms.
That's it, man. That's the one thing that would suck is shitting in your cell with your cellie fucking sitting next to you, or showering with a bunch of dudes. I don't like showering. I never was a shower in gym class. I don't use the shower at my gym. I fucking live 2 blocks away. Why the fuck would I use the shower there? I'll use the sauna. And I have used the shower at couple of gyms, but like I'll make sure I find the most private one I can. Like if I got to, like I used to have to travel 40 miles to my gym, and then so that 40 miles is close to other things. Like say I'm heading to Tacoma, right? And I want to stop and work out real quick at my gym before I get there. Well, I don't want to drive 40 miles back to Ione after I fucking showers. I just catch a quick shower there, but they have private bathrooms at that gym, you know? So it's different. Like that's what would bug me about prison, showering with a bunch of dudes and fucking shitting in a cell.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I can't
But
fucking imagine that, man.
Still think I'd fucking choose it over mental health or like a big mental health facility, you know?
There's a guy that I went to high school at Steilacoom High School, which is right next to Western State Hospital. And there's a guy, our teachers used to tell us about him. He'd been there for like 30 years at that point. And, it's funny because some of them you can't keep them all in there. So some of them would come out and they would time it so that it was when school was getting out so they could ask for cigarette money so they could buy themselves some cigs. But there was this one guy in particular, and I had heard about him from multiple teachers. For the last 30 years, he had spent his life thinking he was a glass of orange juice. So he wouldn't very low communication, no movement really. He just was living life assuming he was a glass of orange juice. Crazy, huh?
Yeah, I haven't heard of anything that extreme in what I do, but like you have people, I have dealt with people that will be two different people in the same body, like fucking Fight Club shit. You know,
is that real? You think so? They're not messing around.
That's 100% real, dude.
Oh my gosh,
100% real. And if you experience it firsthand, you know it's real.
Does it creep you out?
Oh, it's creepy. Because let me fucking tell you, usually one side of those people are the most sweetest, nicest person in the world, and they hate that about themselves. And the other side is an absolute pain in the ass monster.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they give you a different look, huh? Like when they change.
Oh, yeah.
Look.
You can
That's
tell.
so scary.
Like me, myself, and Irene, dude, you can tell when they're in that other mode, dude. And there's also these people that kind of are a lighter version of that, where they're just really nice and they understand this about themselves. You know, it's called borderline personality. And they'll really try hard to be nice, and they do good for like a week, maybe two. And they go in cycles. You can almost set your watch to it, dude. And then like a week later, they're just fucking throwing food everywhere, fucking screaming at you, shitting their pants, whatever. You know, I mean, every situation's a little different, you know, but Jesus Christ. And then
I was told, real quick, I was told by a psychologist once that I know, just in passing, I had spoken to this person. They said that's the one disorder that under no circumstances should you get in a relationship with somebody with borderline. Do you think that's true?
Fuck yes.
Okay.
There's no room for it, dude. Like, fucking A.
Got it.
I've seen some people that really, really, really control it better than others, and they take the proper medication. But never say never, because that's kind of mean to say. And if somebody from my company listens to this podcast, they'd probably fire me for saying that, you know, because like our motto for our company is we believe people get better, you know, but I've always came back to that. And this is what I'll tell my staff when they're like bitching about the motto. I'm like, it says better, not perfect.
Yes.
Motto says better. Like I've worked with this lady since the time I started in the mental health pretty much for the last 10 years. And I literally joked with her because I took her to view the place I work at now from my old place I worked at. I took her to go on the site visit for it because it's a step down facility from the other facility I was at. And I joked with her because I've known her for so long. I said, I'm just going to fill out an application here and I'm going to start working here. And we both laughed about it and blah, blah, blah. Well, it turned out like I was pretty fed up with my job, and I met my current boss that day, and she was telling me about how much more money they paid there and like what kind of shit they did there as far as benefits and stuff. And essentially I think she was trying to poach me because it's hard to find help. and I was already fed up with the other place I worked at. So I fucking ended up getting pissed and quitting. And the first thing I did was apply at this place, and they hired me. So like I literally started before she moved in. And then one day I just like show up after she moved in, and she was like, oh my God. But anyways, when we got her in the other place, she was a wreck. Like she wasn't medicated. And it was kind of sad, dude, because like she's a really loving, caring woman, but she can't take care of herself, you know. And there was some stuff that happened where like some people, she got out of the facility. She was so bad. And sometimes people get so bad. Boo. Hey, sometimes people get so bad that they'll kick them out and they'll send them to jail. The jails will just release them, and then they'll just put them out on the fucking streets, man. And until they do something bad enough to get them sent back to jail, and then the jail will have them put in the state hospital. It's like a cycle. But she was at that point where she pretty much she tried to set the place on fire that she was living at. So they kicked her out, and she ended up going out on the streets, and people were like taking pictures of her, like trying to give water to a dead deer, like trying to bring this deer back to life. She was like crying on the side of the road.
That's so creepy.
And she was like trying to give it water, you know, and people were like laughing and making fun of her and shit. But that's when we got her, and she would just scream, dude. Fucking, she would yell at you, call you every name in the book for hours. You fucking piece of shit, cocksucker, motherfucker, racist shit. Fucking until she couldn't talk anymore. You'd hear it for like fucking days. She would just scream. It was like sticking your head in a fucking beehive, dude.
Oh,
And it's funny, like, so then when she would get in that mode, there's like a place that you can send. It's kind of like a place that's like, all right, you're going here for a few weeks till they can get you medicated, because we can't make them take their meds. But there's other places that can. So we send them to that place where they can make them take meds to get them regulated. Well, she was at this place for like 2 months, like spitting on people, and not like, we were like, she's not coming back this time. Well, finally they got her regulated to come back. But the thing that set her off in motion is so they can't just, at the other place I worked at, they can't just smoke their cigarettes whenever. And she's a smoker. Well, she broke into the office and stole her cigarettes, and I caught her, and I was like, what are you doing? And she just made her flip out, and she fucking went off for days until finally they were like, all right, we're sending her to this place for a while. Well, she was there for 2 months, and they sent her back, and she was there for 2 days before I came back to work. And the second she saw me, her eyes lit up in fucking fire. She came at me like it was the same fucking day, and I had just told her she couldn't have her cigarettes. And after that moment, she was like, fine. Like, we did that song and dance for years where she just screamed, and then finally she just mellowed out, and like she takes her meds. Like, we had a really good nurse that figured out, like, okay, like what meds work for her. Because a problem that mentally ill people have is, and this is an American problem too, they lean too much on medication. So they'll dump a bunch of meds in them, and they'll either won't work, or they'll make them feel like shit, make them feel worse. And they're just like, too bad. You just don't like taking your meds. You just don't like taking your meds. So I'm always like the guy that has the mentality where, like, you think that they want to feel better, right? Like, they obviously want to feel better. So start fucking listening to them. And we were lucky we had a good nurse that did do that. And she'd helped a lot of residents get fucking regulated. She helped this lady get regulated. Will she ever take care of herself by herself? No. Mm-hmm. But she's doesn't scream for fucking 10 days straight until she can't talk anymore. We don't have to send her off. And maybe someday she'll go back to that, but she got better. And if she did it that time, she can do it again. That's fine. There's always going to be people in the world that just can't take care of themselves. You know, it's an unfortunate circumstance, whether it's people that have brain damage, fucking mental illness, trauma, you know, and fortunately enough, you know, and that's why taxes are kind of important, is because if we just let these people run around, it's going to be bad, so somebody needs to take care of them. And people can make a living doing that, but we have to figure out how to pay them, and taxes are the only way to do that, So that's why I believe in taxes. But that was a really long story. I'm supposed to be interviewing you, man.
No, just a conversation. This is what I love about talk radio. This is
Yeah,
what
me too.
I'm trying to recreate with my show.
Yeah. Yeah, that's me too. As I sometimes end up talking more than the guests, but I can't even remember how we got off on this. I know we were talking about prison and stuff, but
Well, one thing you were saying that interested me was I had never considered this, but there's got to be some type of taking into account when somebody who's mentally ill, and if they're going into treatment, especially if it's urgently needed, the added obstacle of going through nicotine withdrawals has got to be a pain in the ass.
dude, and check this out too. So these people are adults.
Mm-hmm.
They're not mentally retarded.
Mm-hmm.
They're not children. Mental illness, and this is something that I had to get really involved in the field to understand how it worked, and they're not mentally retarded. Some of them are probably smarter than you and me put together. Some of them lead completely normal lives until they're almost 30 and something just happens. And it's not always drug related. People always be, oh, it's the drugs. Well, sometimes, yeah. But most of the time, if somebody flips their shit because they're on drugs, they're self-medicating and they have that problem there. And that's why they fucking lose it. They're already on their way.
Mm-hmm.
The drugs just help them get there quicker and sometimes make it worse. Like if somebody's schizophrenic and they're using meth, that's going to be bad, or bipolar, because those are things or manic. Those are things that make you delusional. And when you don't sleep, you get delusional anyways. Tweakers will get fucking schizophrenic and not even be schizophrenic just because they stay up so long, But I mean, I kind of forgot where I was going with this.
Well, nicotine withdrawals, like as an added.
Okay, so check this out. So you take these people, and some of them have been successful. We had a lady once, and I would try to keep this short so I don't forget where I'm going with it. But we had a lady that was one of the first women ever to graduate from Oregon State University. She graduated with an engineering degree. Fucking smart lady. Smart lady. Something happened in her 30s. Nobody knows what. But she just lost it. But she was very successful. She didn't have to have Social Security pay for her shit. She was loaded. Like, she could be like, she paid her own. I mean, Social Security might have paid some of it, but she had money in the bank where if she wanted $200, they'd get it for her and she'd just go spend it on whatever the fuck she wanted. Like money out the ass. I don't know how much. They don't let me see that shit, but a lot. Enough to pay for a fucking mental health facility, at least some of it, and have money for whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted. And, but going back to that, and some of these people have lived on the streets and taken care of themselves, and they might prefer that life. They don't want to be fucking facilitated. But essentially what I'm kind of getting at is these people are fucking adults, and you put them in a place where they get their rights taken away, and they don't have a lot of perks. They don't get to fucking pick what food they eat. They don't get to have just basic needs or basic comforts that you and I have, and they have to share their home with fucking 7, 8, 15, if you're in the state hospital, hundreds of other fucking people.
Ugh.
And all of them, like some of them are off the wall. You never know what's going to happen. Sometimes you get a group that's great and it's quiet. Everybody goes to bed at 10 o'clock. Everybody eats dinner. Then you get that one person that's jacking off in the middle of the fucking house, rubbing his dick and touching the food, you know? And it's like, you get that one guy that, and then you can't get rid of him, you know? And it's a bitch to get people out when they're like that. That one person's fucking up everybody's treatment. But let's go back to the cigarette thing so I don't fucking lose my fucking train of thought. But in some circumstances, that smoking a cigarette or having a soda is what makes them feel normal.
Mm-hmm.
Important as shit. And what was shitty about that whole cigarette situation is there was a time where they could just smoke whenever they wanted to. They'd have to come up and get their cigarettes from us. We'd give it to them, watch them go outside because of the problem. You know, they'd smoke in their rooms and shit and set the fire alarms off, stuff like that. So that's what made it. So we had to take their cigarettes. But then the state of Oregon stepped in and was like, nope, you can't smoke at facilities anymore. So we'd have to take them off the fucking premises. Any mental health facility that was 100% state operated, had state funding, which is most of them, 99% of them, would have to take their residents off campus to smoke. Mm-hmm. And you can't do that whenever somebody wants to smoke. And when you're in a secure facility that with locked doors, they can't just go out whenever they want. So it completely took their freedom away. They went from being able to smoke whenever they wanted to only being able to smoke 4 times a day. And obviously that wasn't fucking good for their mental health treatment because it relaxes them, makes them feel fucking like adults. Like, is it bad for you? And that was the state's ration this by saying, well, we're paying their stay there. We're paying their medical bills. So we're not giving them money to smoke cigarettes, and we're not paying health insurance if they're going to be putting bad chemicals in their bodies and causing more problems because it's costing us money. Well, they're mentally fucking ill, first off. We're shoving meds up their fucking ass, in some cases probably literally through a shot at least.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're putting meds into them. And like, this doesn't take long for a med to hit the market before, you know, they put all these chemicals in their body without even knowing what the fuck they're doing. They over medicate them. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. Like, it's essentially the cigarettes are the least of the fucking worries about the shit that's going in their bodies. You know, the life expectancy of somebody who's severely mentally ill is probably 65. Legitimately. You know, I'll tell you this much right now, with as long as I've been doing it, I rarely see them get past 70. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is. I mean, it's not going to make anything any better. It makes it worse, really. It makes it harder on them. But yeah, it's a bitch. It's stupid. Like you were just saying, man. Like you're going through nicotine withdrawals. You're having a fucking mental breakdown. You're pissed off because your roommate won't stop jerking off or shitting in a bucket or shitting in your trash can. You know, or fucking doing whatever it is that pisses you off that they do. I mean, think about like just have you had a roommate before?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I've been roommates with a bunch of my best friends and I still love them to this day. But there were times where we wanted to kill each other. There's, you know, you live with somebody long enough, they can be your best friend and you will still want to fucking kill them.
It's totally unideal.
Mm-hmm. Imagine being mentally ill and having to share a fucking room, not a house, a room with somebody.
How often do they attack each other?
I've had it pretty good. About once, twice a year, we have an incident, and it's usually broke up pretty quick. A lot of the times it's me, usually if I go out there, because I'm the guy with the bark, usually they fucking quit, you know. And like I said, I've got lucky, man. Like, I'm the one that probably pisses them off most. And it's kind of like, I get targeted because I'm big and I'm a guy. You know, I could be the nicest guy in the world. and they would still fucking hate me because of my size and because I'm a guy. Though some of the women there are intimidated by me. I could be nice as hell to them, and they're still just intimidated by me because they probably had their ass kicked by somebody who looks like me, you know?
Fair.
And it sucks because it kind of backs me in a corner to where I have to be a prick sometimes, where like a lot of the girls can be like, oh, you know, they don't have to be that way, but somebody's got to play the role that I do, you know? And sometimes I walk the line of doing shit that's going to get me fired, you know, because the state wants you to do this shit. And sometimes it's just not like possible. You know, my boss, like right before I took the admin position, we had this kid that wouldn't put pants on. He was out of it, wasn't taking his meds. It was bad. It was a bad situation. And she told me, go get pants on him. And I can't just be like, you need to go get pants on now. I can't say that. I have to give him choices. Like I have to watch how I word everything.
Mm-hmm.
And with a risk of getting fired, sometimes I don't do that. My approach isn't bossy, but it's like stern. Like this kid would listen to me for some reason, and he wouldn't listen to anybody else. And sometimes I'd just go up and I would just lightly grab him and I'd look at him in his eyes and I'd be like, look at me, look at me. But I would be like, you need to put pants on. There are females around. They can see your privates. Somebody from the state would have walked in. I'd have been fucking fired.
Why?
But because you got to give him choice. You got to give him rights. It's his right to walk around like that, even though it's illegal. They'd rather me call the fucking cops and have him arrested than do that.
What happens if he gets arrested? Does he go to jail?
Yep. And they repeat the cycle all over again. It's just
Crazy.
weird. But that's considered abuse, kind of, even though it's not really. But my boss was like, get pants on him. I was like, close your door because you can't hear what I'm going to fucking do. I'm going to do it.
Mm.
And she was like, I don't care how. I was like, all right, close your door because I don't want you to get fired because you heard this. And then fucking, you know.
Do women do as much of the mischievous sexual shit as men, like jerking off and stuff like that? Is it equal, or do men do more of that stuff?
I would say men do more, but it definitely
Okay.
happens from both sides.
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
I've definitely seen homeless people of men and women masturbating in alleyways.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's definitely more of a male dominated sport, I guess.
Yes.
But there is definitely females too, man. And it's funny though. Yeah, they'll hit on me sometimes or hit on the other male clients or other male staff, you know. Say just off the wall shit, you know. I'm gonna write a book about my touring experiences and see how that goes. And if I like that, once I retire out of mental health completely, I'm going to write a book about what it was like to be working in mental health for as long as I have. And it'll be cool because I can do it from the ground up, like from just starting out as a peon to like going up in management, you know. But I have to wait a while and I couldn't use any names. Like nurses do this sometimes, like talk about experiences they had in ERs that are just disgusting and they'll sell books like that.
Right.
But I've never heard of like mental health workers talking about it, you know, because the system is fucked, dude. I've always said the people aren't going to be what makes me quit this job. It's going to be the fucking system, man. And it's not just because I can't tell that guy to put pants on, you know, it's because they'd rather me call the cops, have him put in jail, and start this whole circle over again than help the fucking kid, you know?
That's the thing with the federal government, even state governments. There has to be solid rules. And when things are just so concrete, there's not a lot of room for the human consideration. It's tough.
Another problem with it is the people that set those rules usually have never worked in the fucking the field that they're making the rules for. They went to college for it. Now you got a lot of psychologists that are like fucking 20 fucking 6-year-old kids that just got out of school but have never stepped foot in a mental health facility. You know, they'll go to school for this thinking that they're going to be a psychiatrist and they get to talk to 40-year-old men talking about their divorces. But then they realize that like there's like a bunch of different fields, and sometimes they got to take the shit that is messy, you know, and sometimes that's stepping right in the worst part of it. And that's like the war zone would be like the facilities. And you were just talking about seeing men and women both masturbating in the streets of Seattle. Well, that right there is part of the problem, man. It's like that you're seeing part of the homeless problem is you're seeing the mental health fucking problem. You're seeing the mental health system fail. That's a big part of why you're seeing that. And whether it's you can, and every bit of it's failing. Every fucking bit of it. There's not enough facilities. There's not enough state hospital. The rules, the regulations are stupid as shit. Like I just said, people are making rules that have no idea what the fuck they're doing. Let's see. They're putting them in jail instead of homes because they don't have places to put them. There's just not enough access for medication, not enough access to help, and not enough housing and facilitating. And like I said, that's what, when I went back to like bitching about like how these city people are like, you know, they'll take advantage of these do-gooder liberals that are like, oh man, we can't take away these people's rights. They have the right to live on that sidewalk.
Yeah.
And then the city people that are in charge, city council or whoever calls the shots, they'll be like, you know what? You're right. You're totally right. And this way we don't have to pay to put new mental health facilities in, new state hospitals in, facilitate our police officers to actually understand how to properly work with these people, understand the difference between a criminal and a mentally ill person, and understand how to fucking treat them differently. There's a million different things, man.
But the other thing is you can't, right now it's not allowed. You can't force somebody into long-term mental health treatment, even though that's what it takes sometimes. And so I think in the 70s that was allowed, and Jimmy Carter ended that. I'm not exactly sure who, but it used to be that people would be forced to stay in hospitals. And a consequence of that was there was unfortunately a lot of abuse and a lot of mismanagement that led to people suffering. But if you don't have forced mental health stays, then you have a situation like what's going on in Seattle and Portland and Berkeley and San Francisco and Los Angeles. You know, it goes all the way down the West Coast. So it's almost like there's no real answer to solve this thing.
There's not, too. And the one problem is, too, is they go from one extreme to the next, man. So yeah, let's go back to like Girl Interrupted days. They would keep people that were more than capable of taking care of themselves, having a normal life in these mental health facilities that were terrible because they didn't understand mental health like we do now. It's like back in the days where they're doing like electroshock therapy, bullshit like that, you know, and like fucking giving people lobotomies and shit. You know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Girl Interrupted. You know, most people have seen the fucking cliche movies, but the fact of the matter is that shit's very true. You know, like it's pretty accurate of how mental health facilities were and state hospitals were back then. So instead of trying to find a nice medium, or maybe there shouldn't have been a medium, they go from one extreme to the next, you know, and you can't force somebody to have it. You can in some cases, but it takes a bit, you know. You have to be proven. You have to be in the system. You have to do something to get put in the system, you know, and but yeah, it's just a weird thing. It's like sometimes they can do it and sometimes they can't. And there's not a rhyme or reason of why, you know.
I was under the impression that the only place you can do it is for up to 3 days, and that's in Florida. There's some law in place where they can take you and force you to stay for 3 days, but I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, and you know, maybe you might be right. I haven't dug into it, surprisingly enough, that deep, and maybe it's just because I've just assumed that's not how it is. Because maybe in most of the cases, once you put somebody in jail for long enough, they'll be like, I'd rather go back to the state hospital, because jail is worse than prison or state hospital, you know? So maybe they more people volunteer to actually just go to the state hospital than get sent there, you know? But I know that there are cases where they can just refuse it, but eventually they're going to get arrested, because you can't do public indecency or criminal shit in general, you know. And a lot of times, if you're mentally ill, that's what you do, because you don't have a concept of what you're doing or why you're doing it. You know, you're just acting irrationally, and it's yeah, it's just sad, man. And you can go back, you know, that is part of the problem too, man. But I'll tell you, if they would commit to putting more of the tax money into mental health care instead of fucking politicians' pockets and bullshit buildings, whatever, you know, we, even if they could refuse medical care or mental health care, it would still probably be better, because I'm sure a lot of those people that are living on the streets right now would probably rather be living in a warm house with fucking 3 meals a day.
For sure.
So,
but some don't. So I used to meet them in
oh
Olympia.
no, man.
Some
You're
of them
right.
just, they wanted to be on the road all the time on a Greyhound.
Yep. And not every homeless person's mentally ill. My uncle just loves being homeless, and he's probably a little mentally ill. I think we talked about that. I think anybody can be mentally ill if you try hard enough. You know, I'm sure he's manic, not manic, but I'm sure he's depressed, you know, depressed, anxiety, whatever. You know, obviously he's not normal because he fucking loves it, but he can hold down a conversation and he's cool.
And well, even if you're just about 10% mentally ill, if you get the addiction in there, it'll exacerbate it real quick.
Oh, yeah. Yep, you're right.
Know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, not all homeless people are addicts either. My uncle did meth just because he was homeless once. He said, I never really did it again. He's like, but I figured, fuck, I was homeless. Everybody else is doing meth. I might as well try it. You know, and maybe his thought process too is like, when you're homeless, I'm sure it's hard to find a place to sleep. So you might as well just stay up and keep going if you can, you know?
You don't want to fall asleep at night. No, it's dangerous.
Yeah. But yeah, not every mentally ill person is way the fuck out. Or a homeless person is way out there mentally ill, you know? Some of them are just drug addicts that are broke, or people that are down on their luck, you know?
Yeah. Hey, we'll have to do this again sometime, but what do you say we wrap this up in the next 10 minutes or so? It's getting late. I'm getting sleepy.
Me too, man. I was just thinking the same thing. We didn't even cover half the shit I really wanted to.
Oh, my bad, man. We got, you know, that's just how a conversation goes. Gets carried away.
It goes where it goes, dude.
Do you have any flash questions you want to ask?
Let me think. So I do wish, I wish we would have focused a little less on my career and a little more on you. But I do love hearing your opinions on everything pretty much. That's why I like talking to you, man. But one thing I really wanted to dive into was your experiences in interning for that radio station. We talked a little bit about that, but I don't know if that's a rabbit hole that's going to take longer than 10 minutes. Maybe we should save it. And now that I'm back doing this a little more often too, we should be able to do this a little quicker again than we did, you know, because it's probably been, well, we talked in March, I think, is the last time we talked, and we were going to do something quicker where I interviewed you, but we can do another part a lot quicker this time. So if this is a subject you think will take a bit to talk about, maybe we should parking lot it for now.
I'll tell you the 101, and then if you want to follow up with the show coming soon, then we can do that. How about that?
All right.
So I had failed out of my freshman year of college, and all I wanted to do was radio. So I emailed some radio station, and I told them that I was still in school and I wanted to do an internship. And it was Mix 96.1 in Olympia, and they're independent. They're kind of hippies, so they just believed me, and they gave me an internship. And I don't know, it was just luck, man. I stuck around long enough to where I met my co-host there. His name is Warren. And we like would stay at the radio station until like midnight on Saturdays and Friday nights, and we would figure out radio and stuff like that. And once I learned the technical aspect, I kind of found a niche writing jingles and commercials. So I would write commercials for businesses, and some of them stuck, and they gave us more advertising money. So that's how I got a job, and then I became a producer after that. That was a wild world, man. That some of the stories, the best quote ever, and this happened. There's this guy named DJ Dave Mann, and he'd always be sweating on Fridays. He would come in the mornings, get money, and then come back 3 hours later reeking of weed. This Dave Mann was one of the all-time characters. And the greatest quote, or one of the most memorable quotes I'll ever hear in my life, is he'd gotten yelled at by the program's director for saying something like, Michael Jackson touched us all, and here he is with You Are Not Alone, but he didn't touch us in that way, or something like, he said something like that, and he got yelled at because it's a family station.
Didn't it was a Christian station too, or
no, just top 40, like Pink and Maroon 5, like bullshit. And so he would always say crazy things a million miles an hour before he went on the air. And when he went on the air, he was a total professional. But he was like, this motherfucker, this guy, he tells me I'm an idiot. He tells me I'm racist. I'm not racist. How could I be racist? I learned how to eat pussy from a black stripper in Texas. Live on the air. This is Mix 96.1. And he went perfectly into it. And that was just a typical day. Like, radio's filled with characters, which was a lot of fun, and ego, especially when you're at a radio station in Olympia. You are the staff, and any type of on-air staff. It's the studio of broken dreams. It means people didn't make it to the Seattle market. You know what I mean? So they were traveling the country, Dover, Delaware, Tulsa, Oklahoma, if you're lucky, then Olympia, Washington, making $10 an hour, mind you. And it was just a wild spot. I mean, incredible stories. It's not a sustainable career for anybody, almost anybody, especially moving into the modern world. But it was fun.
what do you think? Like a guys like in the men's room make? What do you think? Do you think they make a pretty good living being a DJ?
I think
they're not nationwide. They're big in the Pacific Northwest, but they're probably not real big like countrywide.
I think about it a lot. I think that they're probably one of the last great live on the air talk shows that we'll see. I think we're moving into the podcast space. I bet you they make at least $500,000 a year each, because once you get to that point, you're not just making money from the radio station, but you also get a cut in the sales and stuff.
Yeah, and they've got like endorsements and shit from like bratwurst and beers and shit.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah, the men's room beers and stuff. They're making good money.
And I also wonder how much of the pieces of like the shows they promote they get, because they like do concerts and shit, you know, or like sometimes they'll get hired to do like DJ shows. I mean, I guess I can't remember like how you put that, but like host like rock shows. Like they'll be the guys that are in the middle of the sets, like, hey, up next, you know, and like shout out all the sponsors and shit, you know, like, and they've got to pick up probably side gigs doing that and shit too. And then a lot of them have podcasts, which probably carry their own wave of advertisement that maybe in some cases, depending on what their contracts look like, the radio might not even get a piece of. And
they're syndicated as well. So
they need to keep that spirit alive. Take it into podcasting though, because you're right, man. There's not a lot of podcasts that are like that. And it's something that if radio does fucking go down the shitter, and I don't think it ever really will completely, it might end up kind of just being like an all AM radio kind of thing, or not all AM, but FM might end up kind of turning into AM, you know, where essentially like a guy like you or me could go buy a radio fucking station for pretty cheap and just do, you know, or whatever, you know, and make it super easy to do. But they should keep that spirit alive, because guys like the Men's Room and Bob and Tom and BJ Shea is another good one off of fucking KISW. I mean, they've got a lot of good shows out there that are still on the radio, you know, and I really do hope they keep that some of that spirit alive when it flux or goes over to podcasting a bit more.
Well, BJ Shea and the Mentorum, they record it and upload it as a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's one of the drawbacks of working for a big old company. When you work for Entercom, which is now, I think, Odyssey. But anyway, they get a cut of it, yeah, but they could be getting all of it. But when you work for a big company, they sign you and they got you already. I'm sure they're not complaining. I'm sure they're making at least.
I'm sure. And then also, man, it's like, so it's kind of like signing to a major label when you're an artist. You know, you're good. You could probably keep all that money yourself. But what the radio station and the company does for you is it gives you a platform to get heard by more people.
Right.
You know, and that's what you need, man. And that's the same with the artist. That's what the record label. That's why people sign to labels. So you can be good all day, but you ain't shit if nobody hears you.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's probably why. And it's probably why a lot of those guys stay so loyal too, is because that's where they got their start. You know.
Do you want to hear one of the jingles that I wrote back?
Yeah,
back
I was going to ask, man, if there was anything that maybe I would know. Was it all just like local shit?
Yeah, you wouldn't really recognize any of them. They were like, it was cheesy, but I'll read you. This is one of it's called a spec, like an ad that you just give to a business in the hopes that they'll say, oh yeah, I want to advertise with you. So you know the Suicide is Painless theme song?
The MASH theme song?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
This is how it goes. A funeral will break the bank. Cremation's cost an arm and leg. Will paying all of that money burden your family financially? 'Cause Stickland Funeral Home, you see, has got a prepaid plan to save stress and money. Set your final plan and pay monthly while you breathe. And then here we finish. Your loved ones can now mourn in peace. Expenses paid by the recent deceased. Now all that they will have to do is sit around, laugh and cry and reminisce of you. And then you go back to the chorus.
Oh man, that's pretty fucking genius. Way to go,
Thank
man.
you. Thank you very much.
You should have been a songwriter, like a fucking you should be like one of those guys in Nashville. You can write country songs too, man.
I know.
Just go listen to like 4 or 5 top fucking 10 country songs and you could be a fucking millionaire next week. You'll be writing songs for Taylor Swift.
I might have to give that a shot. Shit, Chris Stapleton got started doing that.
Yeah. Chris Stapleton actually started out a band that we were on the same circuit for a second. And I had no idea he was the same dude. He was in a band called the Steel Drivers. And I never opened for him or played with him, but I know a lot of fucking bands that I played with and I was friends with that had. But I had no idea he was the same guy for like a couple of years after he hit it big. And my Blackwater, my co-host, was like, yeah, that's the guy from Steel Drivers. We used to play them on Dogwater all the time. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, it's Chris Stapleton. He dropped a bunch of weight. He used to be chubby like me. He was almost as big as me. And fucking, they used to do like bluegrass covers of Metallica and shit. Mm-hmm. And people were really into him because because he's pretty talented, but like crowds just go ape shit because he do bluegrass covers of fucking metal and shit like that. And then, but he would also write his own songs, and then essentially he could sing like fucking amazing and write great songs, and broke off on his own. And they fucking, from what I hear, and I don't know if this is 100% true or not, they made him drop the weight. They were like,
they always do.
And that's probably why he was a songwriter first, is because, and Willie Nelson, a lot of those guys started out as songwriters first because like they were too ugly to be shown on, but eventually they get so good and the artists themselves actually start to like the songwriter so much. If you're like one of the good songwriters like Stapleton and not the asshole nephew that I was like telling you about, but they'll be like, fuck, this guy's good. I'm taking him on tour with me, or I'm going to have him write more songs for me. You know, and that's where guys like Stapleton get their fucking break, is because they start writing songs. But yeah, from what I understand, the major labels were like, you got to drop 100 pounds if you're going to fucking do shit with you.
Here's an Adderall prescription.
Yeah. You better start doing keto and fucking working out, motherfucker. Because, yeah. But Well, shit, man. Is there anything you want to add? You give a show plug. Where can you listen to your show at?
West Coast Radio podcast.com, linktree.com/West Coast Radio. And then, I may have to do a reformat. West Coast Radio is a stupid name choice because it's not searchable at all. And moving into the future, you got to think about all of that stuff. So I'm thinking about maybe pivoting just a little bit, and we'll see.
You know, I think you're onto something, man, because I think it's too plain myself.
Yeah.
It's too generic for what you do, you know, and I don't think it suits you. And that's been my only issue with that show, man. Aside from some bad audio quality on a couple shows, which happens. I just put out an episode of Useless and Alone where the audio is garbage. But
that shouldn't have been for a long time, right?
Guy's problem. I think it was from the other guy.
Okay.
I don't think it was you. I think
Hopefully.
it was just the guy you were interviewing. It was the guy that was into Sasquatch, I think.
Oh yeah, that was in the days before I had the professional setup. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, and it was a long time ago, and you don't have a lot of shows like that, even in your older ones. So it's not like that's a huge problem. But my biggest issue I've ever had is that I feel like you don't stick out enough with your podcast name. I think you should go with that, dude. 100%. You should rebrand yourself while you're going through this process in life where you're figuring new shit out. I think you should rebrand yourself a bit.
What do you think about the logo? I like the homeless.
I like the logo.
Okay.
And maybe keep it with something that kind of goes with it, you know, but you don't know what you're getting with West Coast Radio. You know, right. I think it could be the weather about West Coast. I mean, I know the logo, but the thing about the logo too is, and this is what I would do. I'd zoom in a little closer on the homeless guy. Cause right now, I see your logo right now. And if I'm strolling through Spotify and I see your logo, you can't really tell what it is. And if you're an idiot like me, you don't stop to give a shit, you know? So I'd zoom in on the homeless guy so you can actually see his ass.
Okay.
You know? But that might cause you some problems later too. It just depends, you know? It's weird what will cause you problems and what won't, you know, because somebody really important might love your show and look at that logo and be like, fuck it, I'm not dealing with this guy. But then again, if you don't put your heels in and be like, I'm not changing my content just because of that, you know, you got to weigh your options and be like, is it that important to have that ass on there? Or is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, that's the thing. I go back and forth all the time. I thought it fit the vibe of the show. I thought that dude fit the vibe of the show. He told a story in and of himself. He was just a guy that I followed around for like a good 15, 20 minutes. I thought he was interesting. If I zoom in too much, I think it might be a little pixelated. But I go back, you know, you're right. You have to consider everything. And I don't know. I think what I'm going to do with West Coast Radio is I've discovered after talking to a lot of different people this past year and a half, I really like to talk to authors. Probably most of all, overall, I enjoy authors. I love to read. So I think that most of the focus is going to be going into interviewing authors. And then I'll do just a little bit more rare of the talk radio content. I'll sprinkle that in. I think the future of podcasting, because you can't stand the past. Howard Stern was in the past. You know, the future is now, and there has to be some adjustment. I think I want to narrow into the book community, the book market a little bit more. Yeah.
The cool thing about the book market is you've got really a lot of topics to talk about.
Right.
You know, but the one thing I did like about you, and the one thing that introduced us is, you know, when you interviewed Nuck from the Scoffs, and there's been a lot of guests that you've had that weren't authors that I did like. So I almost hope you don't abandon. I almost hope you don't just stick just to authors. But if you're gonna do a topic, that's probably, and just stick to it, that's probably the one to do, because you've got so much ground to talk about.
But I would love to do a show that is unpredictable, always has a variety of guests. But what I'm saying is that's what Sandra Bullock does. So I'm not going to be able to beat out Sandra Bullock. She's the one that she can do the show about nothing in particular. And she's got the team, she's got the advertising money, all that stuff. I think that if you're the little guy fighting Goliath in the podcast space now, you have to make sacrifices and you have to choose a very niche market and grow from the niche. So if I get huge one day, then I can go and do what type of show I want to do. But even Joe Rogan at first, what was his niche? It was MMA and drugs. Those were his
comedy,
two. So I think that if I really, really want to be serious about being a financial success in podcasting, I think I'm going to have to make decisions that kind of suck for me, but might be smarter.
You're right, man. But like I said, don't let it make you hate it, because it's like writing music you don't want to write just to be a musician,
But that's one thing that keeps me going. That's above all, no matter what, when there's a couple microphones and there's a conversation going, I'm enjoying myself. I just never get tired of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, you're easy to talk to. And like I said, man, that book idea is probably good because you could talk to fucking Anthony Kiedis about his book from Red Hot Chili Peppers. You could talk to a musician about their book. You could talk to a wrestler about their book. You could talk to science fiction could go for forever. You could talk to people about Bigfoot still because they wrote a book about Sasquatch, but then you could just write about people that are authors about fiction, science fiction, fucking like history. I guess what I'm saying is like the market's endless.
Yeah. I mean, to close it out, I'll tell you what my Achilles heel is. This is going to be my downfall if I don't make it. My downfall is this. I'm a creative person, like the jingle you just heard. I know universally it's pretty good. No matter who hears it, they're going to give me a smile. So I have the creative abilities down. I'm a dog shit business person. I'm not good at it. And I don't particularly like it either. But I think that, again, you go back to why did one Led Zeppelin make it amongst 1,000? You have to have everything. So if I'm gonna be successful, I got to be better at all of that. The craftiness as far as a business person, knowing how to market, knowing how to sell, this, that, and the other thing.
Well, I can kind of and I hate to interrupt you, and I'll try to make it quick because I know we're trying to get off here, but I can relate to that too because I'm a shitty fucking business person, and sometimes I get that shit like thrown in my lap, and I feel like that's why a lot of my ventures have failed. Ruckus and the Boonies, Ruckus and the Records. I'm good at doing a lot of things, but I'm not good at other things. And what I'm thinking is like, is there like, because there's like podcast networks out there. Is there somebody you could get the attention of that could help you get to another level? Is there people you could pay a small fee to that can help you get your shit out there more? Things that can, essentially what I'm saying is, can you find somebody that's affordable enough and hire them to help you do the things that you're not all that good at? And you can learn them yourself. You're a smart cat too. That's always the thing too. But the reason I'm saying that is I thought I could, and I probably still could if I really, really tried, but I'm kind of lazy. So like now my business ventures, my plan is shifted. Like I want to start another record label, but I want a partner that's smarter than me in every aspect that I'm not smart in. So when I'm about to make a bad choice, they can properly talk me out of it. When I'm about to spend money on something stupid, they can properly talk me out of it. Also, there's somebody that's over there that I'm responsible for. So I can't take money out of that pot and spend it on something stupid for myself. That'll hold me accountable. If I have a partner where we're sharing things, sharing the responsibility, sharing the taxes, sharing everything, I'm not going to fucking make any dumb choices because it's going to put them at risk too. So, that's just something to think about. And I don't know if you could make that same concept go into podcasting, but where you find somebody to heighten your weaknesses, I guess.
Well, the literature was always out there. This is another issue with West Coast Radio is when I started West Coast Radio, I knew that if I placed any more expectations to get to episode 10, I would burn out too quickly. It's hard to stick with something for a long time, anything. And so I pissed out the name West Coast radio, let's get to 10 episodes and we'll see what happened. And then the show grew pretty quick. A lot, I mean, not colossally, but it grew faster than I expected. And it clicked in my head, I could actually make something happen here. So the point is, though, all the literature is out there as to how you can be successful in podcasting, the business of podcasting, the business of music. I didn't follow any of the rules. So I think I may need to tear down the walls a little bit. I've learned a ton in this year and a half.
Yeah.
And I think I may need to start from scratch a little bit with the rebranding and follow the rules this time. Read all the literature on what it takes to do that successfully. And then again, it comes back to, this is a creative industry where you have tons and tons of people that want to do this professionally. And I may go down swinging, and that's just the fact of the matter. So who fucking knows,
I don't know, man. And I think if you try hard enough, you can get out there. Your product's good, man. And you got a knack for it. And I think we're in similar places with me and the record label and you and your podcasting, where we're both kind of at a point where things weren't really working, and it's time to, like you said, just tear it down and rebuild. And that's kind of where I'm at too, and do it the right way and figure out how to do that the right way too. And when I was saying I want a partner, that's true too, but I still do want to learn like about publishing properly and shit like that, like real things, like how to maybe get my shit on Spotify and skip the getting robbed by distribution companies, like, so I'm with you, man. Like, and best of luck to you, man. I'm looking forward to what you got going. I'm sure that whatever it is, it's going to be good. You have to keep me in the loop on what you're planning.
Yeah, I'll do that. And then I'd love to have you back on my show whenever you want. I'd love to be on your show coming soon so we can get to those extra questions. But hey, man, you're a part of the podcast family, so it's just good to catch up with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we'll try not to make it so far away again. I know I've been trying to get you on here for months, and now that I've got a little better setup to where I can do things a little better, maybe we'll get you on a bit sooner, and we can I don't know. Like, I feel like we had a lot of catching up to do on this one, and that might bite us in the ass because people might look at it and be like, wow, this is a 3-hour podcast. I don't want to listen to all this shit, when it's really good. It's, maybe I should make it a 2-parter too, but next time, we just won't have the pressure, or like we're decompressed a little bit, I guess. We haven't talked for a while. So now that we've talked, and we've talked for a really long time, next time it might be a little more organized and a little more, I guess, like not loose with the time bit, But
and the honest to goodness truth, to be, dog bite is, I'm not that interesting. I'm an endurance athlete. I like to paddleboard. I run marathons occasionally. And so I spend a lot of my time training for that. And then I love the podcast. So I spend a lot of time doing that. I do bullshit, non-sustainable freelance work, trying to find a full-time job. And then I went to Seattle U, went to community college. That's about it. That's basically my story, really.
Some of those people, though, are the best people, man. Like, just because on paper you're not that interesting doesn't mean your mind isn't interesting, or the things that you talk about aren't interesting, or how you view the world, or your passion for things. Because like most people in this world that offer something special, or some sort of that are successful, are people just like you. They're people that didn't start out with a real interesting background. It doesn't mean shit. Everything I've done has been a complete failure, and I've got some good stories from it, but it's just, if you're an artist in any way, I guess kind of what I'm trying to get at is like, it's just a struggle, and most of us don't seem that interesting on paper. It's
that's true.
About. It's what we talk about and what we bring, I mean, even if you look at it, like, and I'll try to wrap this up real quick, and I've used Kurt Cobain as an example fucking so many times in this interview alone, but Kurt Cobain really, like, what the fuck was interesting about him besides the fact he made badass music? Like, he was just a normal kid from Aberdeen, fucking Washington. His parents got a divorce. He became kind of a fucking weirdo in high school. Didn't feel like he fucking belonged in Aberdeen, and God, who fucking anybody who's been there would know why.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's nothing really special about him on paper. What makes him special is what the shit that he brought to the world later. You know,
True.
most of our histories, even if they're bad, aren't all that interesting. You know, especially if we're not born kings or born with the privileges of being able to go places whenever we want, do things whenever we want. When you're an average person, you're going to have an average story. What you bring to the world from your mind and your soul, that's what matters, you know? And I think you got a lot to offer there, man, because I don't know what you'll do, but I know I've liked listening to your podcast, and it's hard for a guy like me to listen to too many people just talk. I have ADD, dude, and you're one of like probably 6 podcasts that I listen to.
God bless. Thank you.
So I think you got something. I'm looking forward to seeing what you got. And I felt like you understood too. West Coast radio was kind of something to just figure it out. And I think you're on the right idea of what to do on your next step.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you letting me know that as well. It helps to hear, you know, that
and you
type of
never
stuff.
want to be the guy that just says that, because I like what you do now, you know, so I wouldn't just pull you aside.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I think your product could be better if you changed the name or you did this, you know.
Absolutely.
So I've said that to some people, and it pisses some people off, so I just don't anymore. You know, sometimes honesty hurts people's feelings, pisses them off, or like, you know, maybe somebody's trying really, really hard, and like, I know you are, you know, but maybe they're trying real hard and they're just feeling like they're on the right path, and like they're I don't know. I'm the kind of person that thinks there's always room for improvement and always room for ideas, but not everybody's like that. Sometimes people get really connected to the amount of work they put into something, and they'll take it as an insult if I say, hey, I think you should maybe do this instead, you know.
That's no way to grow, though. You got to be
And
able
plus-
to take good. Yeah.
And who am I though? I'm just some fucking guy, you know. It's not like I'm saying, like, I think some people take it as like, especially from a music perspective, because like a lot of bands, I'll be like, hey, I think, you know, you guys are good, but like this one time, I'll give you an example. This lady was dating this guy in a band, and he decided to let her sing in the band background, or like for a couple songs, and she was pretty good, you know, and she was pretty but she could obviously, I mean, she was like 40 and never fucking sang professionally, never was in a band, but she did pretty well for singing with her boyfriend some cover songs. But she came off and she was kind of acting like a little bit of a rock star about it, you know. And then she literally was like asking me for advice, and when I gave it to her, she'd almost get like butthurt. You know, I'd be like, when I was first starting to sing, I had a karaoke machine and I would sing into it, because I found when I'd sing in my car, or I would sing in my room, or I would just sing, what I was hearing coming out of my fucking mouth wasn't what I was hearing come through the speakers later, you know. And I don't think a lot of people have that problem now because there's cell phones. So people kind of like, you know, like back in the day, you'd watch yourself on video and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I sound like that.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, I think everybody kind of has an idea of what they sound like. But I was just like, record yourself singing and study it just like you'd study a book, you know, essentially is what I told her. And she got kind of like, oh, what? You don't think I'm good? Like, we fucking you're 40 years old and you barely started. It's not that I don't think you're good. I don't really. I think you're good for somebody who's 40 years old that just started singing in her boyfriend's band. It's not the worst thing I've heard. You know, I've heard people that do this professionally probably sing less good than you, but if you want to get better, this is how I did it. That's all I'm saying, you know. And sometimes people take that the wrong way, but I think you're really onto something with changing the name, because that's always been a thought with me. It's too generic. It's too you don't understand what your show's about in the title. And I guess I could say the same about some of my shit too, you know? But I feel like it could be a little more unique, something that pops even out a little more. You know?
West Coast Radio is a name for a hobby.